Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to RLAfterShock, the quintessential podcast for everything that is European Rocket League esports. I'm the Eternal J, and joining me back again after a 2-week hiatus is Digital Bacon. What?
It's weird, okay? It's the first time I've ever said you say, I'm the Eternal J, and it's wrong, okay? I haven't adjusted.
Look, you can blame the Counter-Strike community for that, right? Because Rocket League aren't arse-hats about it, so there you go. I am the Eternal J, and I am changing because of pieces of shit. So there you go. Have at it. Here we are. AfterShock episode 24. We took a week hiatus from last week, so we're just like, there's not enough going on. Obviously, we were in full swing with the RLRS qualifiers. There's not a lot that we can break down, just because none of it's taking place on stream right now. So we're just being like, fuck it, let's just do
it's off-season, really. It's like the cold winter of Rocket League. That's it.
Yeah, basically. I guess that's one way you can sort of describe it, the cold winter of Rocket League. And in the middle of that winter, a small podcast will broadcast across the airwaves and talk about the current state of Rocket League esports. That's going to be our main feature. We're going to be addressing everything, and I mean everything, in regards to Rocket League esports and its current state at the moment, plus all the latest news, including some confirmed rosters, some moves, some pretty big moves, actually, for that much. And, of course, answering all your mailbag questions via the Discord fans. So let's start, actually, with some of those news pieces, because there is quite a lot to go through, actually. Again, it's like a comparison to last week where we had nothing to talk about, and this week actually got 6 things that happened in between last Tuesday and this Tuesday. For starters, we're going to actually start with some pretty bad news, unfortunately. Gold Rush announced that they are ceasing operations. Gold Rush, obviously known for their 1v1 LANs, some sort of like show matches essentially held out of James Bott's apartment. But they announced only on Tuesday, actually, when we were scheduled to have our 24th episode, they said, yeah, we're done now. That's it. Thank you very much for making Gold Rush 1 and 2 happen. And of course, RIP to what was my personal favorite thing out of that whole thing was the Rush Hour podcast, which I fucking loved listening to. But in the end, it didn't quite work the way that Gold Rush wanted to, Bacon, and they're gone. Unfortunately, it's RIP to Gold Rush.
Yeah, it's a bit of a sad one because I like all the content that can come out in different varieties. Like, we were talking earlier, you've got your YouTubers, you've got streamers. Like, we were saying about how we love so much at the moment, how Leftmere is sort of like becoming a creative genius with the workshop sort of stuff. And the podcast / these little, I'm going to say, unprofessional LAN events that the Rush Hour guys the Gold Rush guys were doing were so much fun for Gold Rush 1 and 2. Just near enough, get a bunch of friends in an apartment together and just play Rocket League for a weekend. It was great fun to see and do. That sort of mix up as well between EU and A was fantastic. And to sort of like not see that again, at least on the Gold Rush, because someone else could pick up the mantle, but to not see that again, it makes you sad, really.
Yeah, it really does. And again, I kind of hate it. Kind of pisses me off to a certain extent, because one of the things I really wanted to accomplish with AfterShock was to inspire other people to make podcasts and for other people to go around and do stuff for their own region. Obviously, we're in EU, we could do something like NA, and someone from some 2 guys from OCE could do their own podcast, and sort of like around about the same time, like James was already planning this sort of thing, and obviously he was doing like much more advanced shit than we were doing. He got 4 people into one room every week basically, and managed to pull a podcast out of that hat. Like, it's great stuff, it was really good shit that they were doing, and it was kind of just run off the back of only it was just kind of run off the back of his own pocket and off the back of the voluntary work that those guys were doing, similar to what we're doing, except just a much bigger scale. And it seems like those costs kind of caught up for him. If I recall correctly, the Reddit post about this, James did come out and say it was mostly because they couldn't secure sponsorships, because they had some plans in the works, but a lot of it just kind of fell through in the end.
Yeah, so it definitely seems like for sponsors anyway, at the moment within Rocket League, you need that. I was going to talk about this later, but like the Psyonix seal of approval. And so for Gold Rush 1 and 2, it seemed like Psyonix were there backing it towards some degree. And for 3, they're like, nope, this isn't, this is the 3rd time around for it. You guys should be in a place where you can back yourselves and create this. And unfortunately, where you didn't have that, that's what it seems like anyway. We don't know the full extent, and we shouldn't ever really, because that's like a behind the scenes sort of matter. But for me, for whatever reason, like for them to shut down the Gold Rushes as well, which we know from doing a podcast, that wasn't making them any money. That feels like that,
Yeah,
that,
I feel that hurt firsthand, brother. Tell me about it.
like it was such a well produced podcast. Like they were probably in the stage of give it another month or two and they could start getting sponsors off the back of that, if the viewership was there and it was pushed a little bit more like marketing wise, which again is like it got so close but then shut early. That's what it feels.
Yeah, exactly.
It feels
That's
like an
my
early
thing.
access game that never made it.
That's my thing. That's my thing. I'm always so fucking jealous of how well that podcast did. Although I absolutely loved it and loved listening to it, the one thing that always hits me is the amount of times whenever James would post something on the Reddit, it would always get comments, whereas we don't get comments on the subreddit. It's like, for fuck's sake. And then they've always got like at least 50 to 100 live viewers, and we right now have got 8. You know, it's always like those stats is shit that I gush about. And yeah, we have actually pretty good stats on the show when it comes to the VOD and the audio podcast. Like, you know, we've actually got, I think for audio podcasts like distributed through iTunes, Spotify, etc., I think we are the most highest rated.
Yeah.
But you know, for Gold Rush, they were the highest rated in terms of the community in general. You know, like, they seem to have a lot of shit in gear,
like the stream and everything like that.
Everything, you know, so like it's a pretty big blow not only to the podcasting, not only to the Rocket League space, but the podcasting space when it comes to Rocket League, because now I think it's just us and ASAP. I don't count LeafX's new one with that TV show. I'm not even sure.
Squad.
Squad. Yeah, the rebranded HUD basically.
I really want Unthink to change, like not change, but make Unrivaled a bit more podcast, like, you know, audio friendly. Because at the moment it's very much still visual, and that if he could find a way to tweak the Unrivaled formula a little bit so that it could be put out as a podcast onto Spotify, I would love that so much.
I don't know. I think Unrivaled has its own like little space in the Rocket League content world. Like, you know, I think it's certainly like very, very exclusive and very, very sort of like you know, just very, very I don't know, almost like parody-esque. Like, you know, we're super serious on this show. Like, we have a good laugh and everything, but overall, when it comes out to the content, we go pretty in depth when it comes to when it comes to talking about the serious Rocket League things. So, you know, I feel like
part of that problem as well is that Unrivaled takes place every 2 weeks, so the news is old, so it's not really news as such. So it's just you've got time to make fun of it, really. And that's what
I think it just works in the context of what Unrivaled wants to be. It's a game show. Yeah, it is a game show, and we are a chat show. We are a podcast, so enjoy that fucking podcast, bitches, and also get some sponsors, boys, because you know we're this shit don't come cheap or free. So there you go.
0 to 10 in no time, right there.
Yeah, and unfortunately, Gold Rush felt the sting of that. They are gone. It's sad to see. Hopefully, there was a comeback at some point. You know, obviously, Nexus has come back again recently. So, you know, like I'm not counting out the idea that Gold Rush would come back for any like a one-off event or a charity thing. So, I can have a little bit of hope. I can have a little bit of hope in this one, Bacon. But for now, they're out of the picture, and that's just a bit of a shame. So, let's talk about some roster stuff now, because there is a few roster moves that went down. One in particular kind of caught me a little bit out of left field, because we've been talking a lot about coaches and coaching and the role of coaches in Rocket League. And then Dignitas obviously were looking for a coach. They pulled this out of the hat. They've recruited Snasky. This is interesting to say the least, Bacon. I mean, like, because for me it's kind of baffling, because there are a few names that are kicking around my head about who could be a coach in the context of Rocket League, and there were a few names that always cropped up. It was always Marky Dudar or Shakaron were the main two guys that we were focusing on. I think we may have also said... The name's escaping me now, fuck. But those were the two, alongside the third one that we were also discussing here and there, as the main two players. It was like, these guys can transition so easily from being a player right now in a middling form to a really world-class coach. And, well, Snasky was never part of that picture for me. I don't know about you, but like this is a very out of left field sort of thing.
So I asked about this like with a couple of players afterwards, because the same as you, I thought, I've never known Snasky to be like a mastermind of tactics, anything like that. Generally, whenever you watch him back during the RLCS and RLRS and that, you would like, okay, he seems to be a bit more of a captain role, but he was the one that always made the most mistakes in the team, it always felt like. But no, talking to players and that, and he does come up with the team strats, and he's the one trying to coordinate it. So it makes sense, actually, with the inside players, that he would be transitioning over to this sort of like coaching role. My only problem with this, Jay, is it sort of makes it seem to me that being a coach for RLCS is more important to him than being a player in RLRS. We don't know if he was, essentially kicked off the old Vikings ex-Fnatic roster.
I doubt
but
it. I heavily doubt that, just because it was now with Snasky going, that limits that team down to just one player, basically, officially. Oh, there's rumors that Mummy Snow's coming back, but I would heavily doubt that they.
Well, that was it. They were all looking to sort of split off and go with someone else, and now it looks like for me anyway, there's no reason why Mummy Snow and Maestro would split purely because they've got that spot for another season, and try and work something out. Maybe do like a complexity, think of complexity. As soon as they got rid of a lot, everyone say like, oh no, this team's going to fall shambles. They pick up Flakes and look great again. So who knows what happens there? But for me, it definitely feels like, again, it's another sort of sighting of RLRS isn't important to the pros. It's RLCS or nothing, essentially. And
well,
that's the image it's giving off, and I don't want that. To me, that feels like as if it's sort of bad form. But I can definitely understand if Snasky thinks a bit like, Marky Duda, if he can't keep up to the curve, this is a good transition and a good point in time, because we were talking about earlier, 2019 is going to be the year where Rocket League will transform and kick off again.
If it happens to be that. I mean, I think I think if it is true that that's sort of like the way that pros look at the RLRS, I think that says a lot about the state of the scene. And I think we'll come to that in a little bit when we get to our main feature. But honestly, I think I disagree with you on how I think Snasky views the RLRS and how and that sort of like conversation with him specifically. Because in an interview with Rocketeers, he said something like, it felt like his sort of like playing career was winding down anyways.
Yeah.
Certainly, I'd have to agree to that to a certain extent, because obviously Fnatic, in their waning sort of like few months, felt like they were just further spiraling down and down and down, with the only major result they had was a Gfinity Elite Series second place. But other than that, obviously demoted from the RLRS for the RLCS for like the second time or so. And, nothing compared to the leftover squad that we saw like, in early 2017 or so.
Well,
so, go for it.
I was going to say, we're at the turning point now where we're going to start seeing the old guards sort of fade out. Like, we've seen it with Marky Duda. We're going to start seeing with a lot of these OG players. We're coming down to a point where there's not actually many Season 1 players left within Rocket League, but then we're starting to see the Season 2, Season 3 players sort of fall off. And it's just a natural progression of esports and teams that, like, we're at the moment looking at bubble teams within Rocket League and going, this is the best EU has ever looked. I mean, just take DreamHack, for example, with Echo Zulu. Like, a year ago, that wouldn't have been thought of, but now, looking at bubble teams, and they're starting to get to the level where they can be really threatening, and hence why players are probably going to be looking at this, and more coaching roles are going to be filling up, because the big teams, the big orgs, are going to want to stay ahead of the curve.
Yeah, and again, it brings back into the conversation of Marky Duda. Marky Duda officially retired the other day through his live stream, stating, I'm not interested in playing at a high level or keeping up with the grind anymore. So you got to ask yourself, like, if there's a future for him, that the most obvious thing would be coaching. For example, it would be something like casting. I don't know how he feels about casting. I don't remember what he said, but again, the idea that him or Shakaron, again, I keep bringing these two names up because I can see that they have such a good amount of veterancy sort of like behind them, and a good amount of experience, to the point where I think they could be able to coach some young players into being the next big thing,
At the same time, though, just going to use the example, because I was speaking to mate Ryan Doomsey at the weekend when we were down the pub, and it was just literally a case of talking about, because, what's he up to these days, that sort of thing. And he was like, well, I could do some coaching, I could do casting, like move on into that progression. But
he'd be a fucking good caster, by the way.
Yeah, but it doesn't interest him. It's not something he's passionate about, not something he actually wants to do. So he's not going to do it. That's got to be applied. Like, if you're not passionate about something, it's the reason why me and you don't have 9-to-5 office jobs, because we don't care for it. This is what we want to do. It's the same for them. They don't want to do a casting because it doesn't interest them, or it's not something they want to do anyway. So why would they progress on to that? The same can be said for casting. Maybe Marky just wants to go into some other esport, or just we're seeing a lot of players at the moment pick up Apex. It's the hot new thing. But that hype will
that's
die
just
off
the
within
cycle.
next
That's
couple
just
of
the
months.
cycle right there. Like, it happened with PUBG. It happened with Fortnite. It's happening with Apex. It's going to happen with the next fucking big thing. So, it doesn't surprise me whatsoever. I mean, we haven't even got any features of esports implemented into Apex. We don't have a spectator client, for fuck's sake. Like, I remember there's a streaming platform you may or may not have heard of called DLive, and they tried to run an Apex tournament, essentially. And the way that they fucking ran it was that they had everybody stream on DLive, and then they just collect all the streams and feed it in, and that's how they spectated shit. It's like
it was a knockoff Twitch Rivals. That's what it was, essentially.
Exactly. That's what it was. It was the fucking. I think that was the stupidest thing about it, to be honest, because Twitch Rivals did it. Not only did they did it, that they did it better, and they presented it in a much better way. Whereas everybody else who's doing, because it's not just DLive that are doing this. I know there's another organization called The Players who did a very similar thing for Blackout when it first came out, doing the same thing right now for Apex now that it's out, and it's like it's very clearly not designed for the intention of having an esports function. I mean, there's the potential and there's the groundwork laid there in terms of the game, but you still have to add. People don't really think about the minutiae of having a good spectator client for something like that.
Well, for me as well, definitely within Battle Royale games, I know we're on a tangent, guys, but just...
Oh, yeah, it's a heavy tangent.
No, because we could, apply this into Rocket League to a cool new way to do some tournaments anyway. But at any rate, the sort of idea that you just go into random games, that gives so many variables that there's no sort of competitive integrity. What if you had a lobby where 4 of these teams had gone up against each other, and then the other guys are going against complete and utter randoms, so they can absolutely smash them, especially when you get 1 point per kill and then 3 points for a win. It doesn't stack up. There's not enough competitive integrity there for me. But just taking that idea, and we're just going on the spitball tangent here, what if we did that with Rocket League? How about a tournament which was run, and then you had a sort of Twitch Rivals watching over it? Because it was done ages back and it didn't really work. Can you remember when it was done alongside Six Mans? Because you imagine it now, that would be quite a cool way to be able to view multiple different games at the same sort of time.
I mean, yeah, I could see it being run if you wanted to do. Again, I think the reason why Twitch Rivals is such a big thing is because it's like a paid activation sort of thing. Like Apex did it when it first came out because obviously they want to try and see if they can boost it in front of as many people as possible. And their clever marketing sort of helped out with that. I think there's a contributing factor as to why they have 50 million players right now. But I don't think it's a contributing.
On the day of launch, they bloody paid so many streamers to play it. Everyone's gone nuts over the whole old Ninja has paid $1 million to just do. What was it, a 4-hour stream, whatever. That's what it is. That is marketing. $1 million.
How much is that? $250,000 per hour or something like that? Fuck that. Shit. If I got paid that much for one episode of AfterShock, I'd be fucking happy. But regardless,
that's a good way. No, it's the point of that you get different ways to advertise the game, and I find it quite funny because Ninja's on the out, where his subs are going down, so he is just off of the old Ninja hype. But you could see that. I would just love, say, a new tournament and doing it off the back. We saw, I can remember with Rocket Baguette trying to bring in K-Dot for a couple of tournaments, and there was massive hype behind that. So what would stop, a bit like what Ballistics did with the subpar lads and bring in a pro player for that, maybe Marky Dudar could be the host and personality behind it, something alongside that. I'm saying that could be your transition point of using the ex-pros to sort of watch over and give their insight on new stuff.
Again, I think it's sort of as you mentioned with Doomsday, it depends if they have passion for it, I know that there are some people that have a passion for it. Obviously I have a fucking passion for it because, that's how I sort of transitioned. I was never really a pro per se, but, I played in competitive tournaments. I had my time. I had my fill.
I was a pro back in time for one, actually, funny enough.
Oh, really?
It was like Reddit tournaments, £250 for a monthly. That was a Reddit, that was the pro scene to time for one. It was all capture flag.
We've come a long way since that point.
Yeah.
But yeah, we're getting on a bit of a tangent right now. But I kind of want to focus in on Snasky. Let's go back to the point itself. I kind of focus on Snasky and what he was able and what he can do potentially for the Dignitas squad. Because he also mentioned in that Rocketeers article that he was actually coaching them back prior to DreamHack Leipzig. They were trialing him essentially, going into DreamHack Leipzig, and obviously we saw how Dignitas did in that tournament. They won the whole fucking thing, and they looked pretty good in doing so. So
it was the rebirth for Dignitas, like
especially when you consider that they recently just brought in Yukio, didn't do so well at WSOE, and it was like, well, is he going to fit in? That was my main thing. Is like, how is Yukio going to fit into this team and still make it work? And Snatski's come along. It feels like Yukio's been fitting in pretty well, I think.
Yeah, Yukio's been an absolute fine fit, and everyone knew it moving in. Like, he's going to be able to adjust, because comparing him to K-Dop, they play very different roles. K-Dop's more of a long midfield striker. Yukio is more of a playmaker, set everything up, all-rounder. But it's Dignitas adjusting to the new era of Rocket League, because K-Dop wouldn't have fitted so much within the current style going forward. It would only been a sort of plummet down into middling. So we're talking like, if they kept going with K-Dop, you could see they would end up about 4th. You wouldn't expect them going much lower because it's fucking Dignitas, but they wouldn't be the world champions again, which is why they took the risk bringing in Yukio and all of that sort of thing. And we saw as well, Vitality just needed a bit of time to sort of like wind up, which is natural, bringing in K-Dop. Everyone thought it'd just be a bit quicker because Fairy Peak and K-Dop have played together like so much. Maybe they've been playing too much 2s and not 3s. That could be the argument.
Oh god, when that fucking meme hit Twitter, I was just like,
Jesus,
of fucking course, Jesus Christ, my god.
But the whole point being that, it just takes a while, and bringing in Snatsky, I can't see anything bad coming out of this. Like, from what I heard, he's going to be able to unite this team pretty well, and that'd be good to see.
Well, we'll see whether he can unite it very well. Again, we have a lot more time going forward. Dignitas have the RLCS to compete in, and obviously DreamHack Pro Circuit is something they won. Though
Big question, do we think Dignitas is going to go 7-0 again?
Oh god, god,
they're not going to get an easy run like last season.
No, it's not going to be easy for them. Like, the EU is looking fucking baller this season, and we're going to talk a bit more about that in a moment.
Yeah, okay, we'll talk.
Yeah, so it's been pretty fucking insane. But to focus on another pro tournament at the moment, if Dignitas do well enough in the EU circuit, they could be going to DreamHack Dallas, and maybe you could too. I want to signal boost this one in case you missed it. It was about a week ago or so when the official qualifiers were announced for Dallas. A couple of days actually after the podcast was supposed to go live. Saturday the 13th of April and Sunday the 14th of April is for Europe and North America respectively, and then they have the closed qualifiers on the weekend after that fact, and you want to get signed up. Can you make the Echo Zulu run?
Gap? I'm just thinking. Between open and closed, I'm pretty sure it's a 2
Sorry, no,
week
it is 2 weeks. Sorry, scratch that. Says I'm terrible at maths, right, Bacon? Like, it's this new CS:GO update that's like fucked the economy entirely, and it's like, so are they on 3 rounds lost bonus now or 4? I can't quite tell. Thank you, Valve. I think that's secretly what they wanted to do, is just fuck me up.
I was looking at ECS and it's like, so it's a new patch, but we've reverted the economy because it's just terrible. And he's like saying that live on the stream, and it's like, okay. Good stuff there, guys. You're going to get a lot of smiles from Valve.
A lot of repeatability out there, boys. Just mwah. It's a good thing it's James and Dan, otherwise they would just be like, any other casters would just get absolutely shit on. I mean, certainly, if I fucked up the maths on that, I would get shit on. I think that's what happened on the ECS community stream. Like, somebody got absolutely railed for fucking up the economy during one of the matches. Not me, but if you're popular enough, you can get away with almost anything. But that's just a passing comment about the general sort of state of society. Maybe we'll do a state of society address, Bacon. How about that?
Please no. This is the only address I want.
We're branching out. We've already done Apex AfterShock on the show today, and now we'll do political AfterShock. Alt-right AfterShock.
just a quick note, because we're on the DreamHack Open qualifiers. They earlier today, I think like a couple of hours ago, tweeted out a picture of like, do you think you've got what it takes to be a caster, because they're looking to redo the community thing. So again, looking for more orgs to do like what happened last time, and we've got a word from the community things that are looking to drop it down so it's not as many streams going on anyway. But they used the picture of Dreadnought. Do we think Dreadnought's going to come back for a second time hosting in Dallas?
I think he did all right actually during Dallas.
Liked him.
Yeah, no, I think he did great. I think he did great, honestly. And again, I had my doubts going into this tournament because I was sitting there like, I'm not really sure. I'm not really sure how I feel about bringing in outsiders who've never done a Rocket League event in the past to come do what is essentially a major. There's guys like us who've been working for years and years. But I think Dreadnought himself, his professionality and the way that he sort of handled himself has been he did really great at Leipzig. And I think honestly, if he came back for Dallas, I wouldn't really have much of a problem with it. So he's proved himself in my eyes.
I would like to see him back because it gives more variety. Like you said with the whole EU thing, a host is not what I was questioning because EU doesn't really have hosts. The biggest host you've got is Tom Deacon or maybe the subpar guys, because there's not much in the way of hosting big events.
I'd count Colin and Stumpy from Subpar as like commentators, not actual hosts per se.
But you get what I mean. So bringing in outside source made perfect sense for DreamHack because we know that Axel Toss might be getting the boot. We don't know what's going on with that because he's said he's not in RLCS. But what does that mean within the whole climate of Rocket League? You never know. And that's speculation for another time. But here, I would like to see him back because he did a fantastic job. It's a rough first day, but it was his first ever Rocket League sort of like gig, so it's expected,
That reminds me, I actually need to go ahead and sign up for that cast thing because I got it last time. I'm planning to get it this time, and you can tune in at twitch.tv/SwitchPlayJ. Like, fuck it, do you want to sign AfterShock up? Do you want to sign AfterShock up?
I would rather you do AfterShock instead of your own channel, to be honest. But
all right, then.
You can't compete with Rewind. Come on, and you'll be on that anyway.
Well, if I can't compete with Rewind, I'll be happy to join Rewind since I already work for Rewind. Yeah. Obviously, I was going to do that anyway for the fucking day of doing matches because I was casting on my channel, finished up, handed off to you, and I was halfway tempted to join. But that's another thing for another day.
Have you not changed your Twitch as well to Eternal J yet, or is that still?
Oh fuck! Sorry, I'm so used to saying Switch Play J. That's the thing. It's been just fucking 3 years. Twitch.tv/The Eternal J. Fucking.
There we go.
Just
you go from one edgy name to another. Oh. Moving on to the next news segment. TSM had Jake as team coach, Jay. What's your thoughts on this?
Yes, it's a week of coaches. This is another curious one. Again, it kind of caught me out of left field.
No, this has been a thing for ages with TSM. Like back when they were Weedham Girls, Jake was sort of doing a bit of coaching for them. So it's more like, to me, when I looked at this, because the Snasky one came out first, to me it felt like, oh, they've just announced it. Why don't we announce? But they do a whole news article, so it's a bit weird. Like, it felt like too much of a coincidence, like it felt like a response to it. But when you write up a whole news article, like, with companies, it has to go through a lot of checking before they post out on the internet. For most companies, anyway. TSM you would expect.
Yeah, I was gonna say TSM makes sense. But again, I want to go back to how much will this contribute to the TSM squad. I think if there's one time they need to bring in an official coach, it would be now, especially because they're flying Jake into EU, so he's going to be living in the continent, essentially working. Yeah, that was the big fucking thing. It was like he's not just calling in from OCE to like sort of like go through demo review. He's actually going to be flying in as an actual full-time coach to help this squad. And if there's one team I think that has certainly been a disappointment so far this year, it would have to be TSM. So for them to bring in a coach right now, especially someone with sort of like some veteran caliber like Jake, like that, now is the time to do it for them. Like now's the time when they need to step up and be like, right, well, yeah, we need to do this because they didn't do well at WSOE. Certainly we expected them to win the whole tournament and they kind of bombed out in playoffs. They really shit hit the fan over in Leipzig. Like that was not a good tournament for them. God, no. Like at all.
Dallas, it was like they'll be gunning to win Dallas as sort of like a redemption. It's that sort of case. And when you talk about TSM, you always think of like the best team in whatever esport they're competing in. Like it's always that sort of case of TSM, Cloud9, Fnatic. It's sort of like or FaZe, whatever, the big esports orgs that have been around for absolute years, and they're always the ones which you expect to be the top of that. So TSM, of course, picked up Weedham Girls, a big pickup, of course, and then for that drop off, they're making sure they stay on top because we all know they got in before the esports org items that they could pick up the big team for when that happens. And they're playing it smart here, securing themselves as a big contender, especially when we've got RLCS coming up this season. It's going to be the most stacked season. Like we said, 7 of the 8 teams could make LAN. And if that 8th team, Mouse, somehow fix their shit, they could even make LAN, but they've got a lot of fixing still to do,
I mean, yeah, that's another conversation we can have when we actually get into the RLCS season, because like fucking hell, Mouse are on a complete shitstorm. But I mean, I want to talk about
for a month. Let's
Yeah,
just
we
hope
haven't
they've
seen them
gone
for
away.
a month. But there's a couple things you got to think about when it comes to mouse sports, and just how they're going to look at, how they're going to be looking in this next season. Because again, I don't know. I don't know where they stand in the grand scale of things. I really am not sure about it. But just getting back on topic with TSM, I wanted to talk about Jake individually. Like, what do we think he's going to be able to bring to this team, and how do we think he's going to be able to fix up We Them Girls right now?
Have you seen his, I wouldn't say coaching accolades for teams as such, but just his sort of whole coaching mentality and that he's gone into over the last year. Just on Twitter alone, He is getting right into the mindset and he wants to make teams improve. He is looking at this as a full career within esports, and from what I've seen already and heard of him, this lad is going to be able to turn that around. If it don't work at TSM, he'll look to another team to improve, because it would be more down to players not taking his advice on board. That would be the problem. I don't doubt him at all.
Okay, all right. Well, again, it's similar sort of situation to Snasky. Is that I think? Oh, sorry. Actually, no. I'm not gonna make that comparison, because Snasky already helped out Dignitas to a certain extent. We have to still see what Jake can do. Really, I don't
Jake's
really know
already
about his
helped
coaching style.
We Them Girls out. Fucking hell. No, it's TSM now.
We
Them Girls is a better name, but whatever.
Nah, I prefer TSM. I prefer TSM. TSM's
Team
better.
Solo Mid, We Them Girls. I will say TSM is better than WDG, but yeah, there we go. Next week, the feature is rating team names and logos as well. Let's do it. When you're scraping the barrel for content, it really is winter.
We were certainly scraping the barrel last week. That's why we cancelled the fucking show. Not this week, though. Another roster move to talk about. Method have confirmed officially that Ocelon has joined the ranks of Rix Ronde and Burrito B. They will be competing in the RLRS next season, or this season, whatever you want to call it. I think this roster's got a lot of potential behind them. I think Method are a very solid RLRS squad, and it doesn't. I don't feel like Burrito and Rix are completely content in just being the RLRS team. But most certainly they are happy with the fact that they haven't been relegated yet. And I think honestly, considering how many teams we've seen come and go, it feels like. It feels like this sort of squad. This squad can still do some really good work.
The squad was on the warpath to get to RLCS. They just unfortunately didn't make it last season. They're going to be looking to do it this season. The biggest problem is they got shot in the leg by the loss of Casio. That was a massive loss for them. So to find a player to fill the void is a big ask. We saw Snasky at Leipzig fill in that spot, and unfortunately it didn't go the best in the world. But here, Ocelon, it's an interesting, because Ocelon's a faster player, and that's what Method just need, a lot of pace to be able to fight their way through RLRS. Plus, all three players are Dutch. They're all from the Netherlands, so I like national rosters. It can add up to some fun times.
Yeah, and when you think about when you think about who has been a part of Rix Ronde and Burrito B sort of trio, you think about that. Usually they are the foundation players, and then they have a very fast, aggressive kind of style to their name. Casio is one thing that jumps to mind.
Fast. We saw when Chakron played with him, where he's a lot slower, a lot more thought out, a lot more methodical.
Methodical, yes.
Yep. It worked for. You would think that'd be good for Method, hey, but no, it didn't work. Chakron's too slow. That's not a problem as such. It just depends on team chemistry and how it all merges together.
Well, again, that's why I'm talking about. That's why I'm talking about the fast style players, because you think about the players that have succeeded under Rix and Burrito's sort of wing. You think of players like Tigray, who had a really good showing in the Elite Series. Speed actually subbed in during Season 2, and we've seen what Speed has become, being part of probably the best team at the moment. Rix Ronde and Burrito B is certainly a great duo together, but I think they have a lot of they have a good eye for seeing who's well fit for their roster. Casio just joined Triple Trouble. At least top 6 in Europe right now. Ocelon certainly is a player that we've rated as part of what bubble scene of just sort of players who are on the precipice of doing incredible things internationally. And I think honestly Method could do some really good stuff with Ocelon coming into the fold for RLRS Season 7, and it helps the fact that they're all from the Netherlands, so they've got that little extra national pride alongside them,
Yeah, definitely. And like I said, I don't feel like this is a bad move at all. it should work out. The problem is RLRS is just going to be stacked next season. So it almost in a way feels like last season was their like a very good attempt to make it, because there was only 4 good teams pushing for RLCS last season. This season coming up, it feels as if it could be all 8, which is very daunting, Jay. Like, I would not want to be a player right now in the RLRS bubble.
Yeah, I'm glad I'm not a player from the RLRS bubble, but
we get watching, that makes us happy.
oh yeah, I'm happy enough. I'm happy enough seeing these guys battle it out, because again, I think Method can still hold them. I think the Method certainly are going to be a team that stay in the RLRS next season at the very, very least. Like, you know, they will certainly hold their spot. If not, they will be up for promotion. So that's going to be my own personal opinion right now. But we'll talk about more about that in detail when we come to our mailbag. For now, we've got one more story we want to cover. This is actually the MLB pack DLC thing that just came out today. Bacon insisted we talk about this, even though I don't give a fuck about DLCs in Rocket League. But this actually is an interesting sort of like this is sort of like an interesting sort of thing, because number one, we've seen that now that we're really, really open to bringing in other sports and other styles of sports. So when's our fucking football Premier League coming to Rocket League? When is our Europa League?
So much.
When's our Europa League coming to Rocket League? And the second thing is as well, this right here is the basis for organization items right now. That this is, we've talked a lot about, you know, we talked a lot about bringing in organization items to get some revenue share going, because obviously we've still been very fucking, you know, we've still been very in the dark about how Science want to keep organizations happy and keep those salaries paid for players. This is actually an example of where they could very easily just, you know, slap some fucking logos on some hats, like, you know. But then it's funny as well, because like Sionis, when they've had that initial press release about, oh, you can't just stick some logos on items and just sell it, it's like, isn't that exactly what you've done right here, boys? Like, you've created a model for a hat, recolored it, added a logo and everything. Hang on, let me see if I can send this screenshot to Craig real quick so he can just display it.
Basically, like, no, they didn't say you can't just do that. It was, we needed a different way to put this out. Like, they weren't happy with a standard sort of DLC format or whatever. And I'm looking at this and going, so when all items come out, are we getting like the Flipside pack or whatever? Or sorry, not anymore, Flipside. Are we getting the TSM pack, which would just be an antenna and a topper, which most likely will be a hat with the, thing on it? Us little wiggling about there, interesting. But are we going to get that, or are we going to get all like an RLCS pack, which would have all the teams encased in it? Because I feel like that's more likely with how we've seen a lot of the merch stuff. And then as well at the same time, please give me a Premiership pack. I just really want that. I've been banging on about it for too long.
I'm hoping that Craig has got this pulled up on screen right now as I'm talking. I can't quite tell because I'm not quite looking at the stream. But hopefully you can sort of see, like, you know, what I'm talking about right here. Like, basically, it is just the same shit, just with a different coat of paint, with a different color and with a different logo.
That's it.
It's basically that this is the basis. This is how you create org items for Rocket League right here. Is you have some sort of like accessory like this hat topper, or you have a flag with a base color and then a logo on the back of it. That's how you do it. And they've even gone to the point where actually on this page they've also got like they've got colored and themed they've got colored and themed fucking colored and themed cards, but also colored and themed player banners with those logos, you know. They've got all this shit basically down pat. All you have to do is just take this and, you know, put Ghost Gaming, put Cloud9, put TSM, put Dignitas in place of the Pittsburgh Pirates and the Cincinnati Reds, which, by the way, are cheesy fucking stupid names, and I absolutely hate MLB for it.
Welcome to America.
Welcome to the States, in short. And, you know, again, it's a little bit curious how they're saying, you know, we can't just, you know, slap a logo on a car, and yet they've done exactly that, basically, with this DLC, you know.
Like, we can't do this, but you've done it for there, but we can't do it for esports items. We want you to do it for esports items.
They want you to do it for their own fucking items. Ghost Gaming want you to stick their logo on that fucking banner and that fucking cap.
To be honest,
I think
what I think would be the best would just be literally a decal, which on the front of the car, it's got the logo, on the side of the car, has got logo on each side, and that would be it. Just a decal, very simple like that, just in white or whatever color for it to match. And yeah, I don't know why it's taken too long.
Well, here's the thing, right? Here's the thing. We'll know that this is the backup sort of template for the RLCS org items when we see them only come out for the World Championship. Because that's going to be like Sonics have sat on their ass and just like not actually done anything with the org items until it's like, oh shit, we made a promise that by the end of Season 7 we'd have something in place. And, now they've actually got to put something in place. They'll just copy and paste that model and put some logos on it. And it's like, there you go, there's your org items, guys.
So for me as well, looking at this, with how I want to say lackluster Rocket League has been with its DLC, and that over the last half year or so, I reckon there's going to be a big update relatively soon with a lot of content, like a new pitch and that, because it's been a while since we've had a new pitch. Salty Shores was the last one back in summer of last year. So I reckon we could, that's what it could be. It could be a lot of big work going on behind the scene to provide a big update for what would be year 4 coming up maybe this summer, and it's just, again, we're going to talk about it later. It's just because we're feeling when did Rivals Arena come out? That was with the Hot Wheel pack back in autumnish time, but all that was a reskinned Champions Field, So, sorry, just saw Lucas in chat there. So it's always been, it feels to me very much like they're building up, and the problem is that they're just not communicating it, which gets, our goat.
As you'll find out later in the show. I keep teasing the fucking feature. But
yeah. I mean,
yes.
Everyone knows the feature. You've already said it. It's the state of scene address. So,
and again, I'm kind of hoping that this is the foundation that we lay. Because again, I would be absolutely content. I'd be absolutely happy if they just did use this as the esports org items thing, right?
Yeah,
I'd absolutely love it right now. So let's see if we can... Let's see if we can keep it that way, guys. And let's have some hopes.
The only thing I ask, actually, is when they add the Dignitas one, if I can have the old Dignitas Ghost instead of the new owl on the hat. That is it.
Nah, Dignitas would never let that fucking happen.
No, they wouldn't,
never
but that's
in a
what I
million
want.
Years.
I'm sure there'll be actually, there's already org item mods, to be honest, out there. I'm not going to say how to get that, but you can quite easily if you want it.
You really don't want to do that. No, because someone will fucking ban this podcast. So let's not have that happen.
Yeah, but it's just that point of Sarnex, you're missing out,
Exactly. So let's hope they don't miss out anymore as we come to the end of our news features. Again, that's quite a lot we have to unpack. We've actually gone over time when it comes to talking about the news feature, but it's fine. Don't worry, we can make up some time right now. As hopefully we can get through the mailbags relatively quickly, and we'll talk a little bit about a couple of those things. Again, if you want to get involved with the podcast, you can send us a question or a topic we can discuss live on the podcast show via the Discord link, !Discord in the Twitch chat if you are not already part of that, or if you're listening to the audio or watching the video versions on Spotify, Google Podcasts, YouTube, wherever the fuck you watch, then of course it's all in the show notes and the descriptions of each and every show, where you can join our community of about 40 people and you can come ahead, just ask us a question. Chances are we'll answer it on air because we don't get many questions. We got 2 questions this week, fortunately. One coming in from our boy Switch, but the other one is coming in from Lucas, who's going to be asking about the Rival series. Of course, big shout out to Lucas, a Liquipedia editor, absolute mad lad. As soon as I put out my announcement of rebranding, he fucking literally finger on the trigger finger managed to edit my page within about a minute or two of me putting the announcement out. I was like fucking no idea how this kid has fucking.
I mean, you've got blunders there as well. They're just waiting on the Liquipedia page in case we leak something. Like that is it essentially.
I wonder if they're competing for edit points or something. I don't know. Anyway, right,
you
Lucas
get edit
asks...
points to Liquipedia. I remember they came out with the top editors.
Did they actually have edit points?
Yeah. They keep track of that stuff.
I don't even fucking know. I have no idea. This is the reason why I didn't make my own fucking page way back in the days, because I have no idea what I'm doing on Wikipedia. So there you go. Rival series, Lucas' question, let's talk about that now. Rival series has been criticised by some for the lack of coverage on all League Play games. Only Season 5 managed to handle it pretty well with their secondary Twitch channel that had no commentary. Last season had a complete lack of coverage on updates on off-stream games, to the point where players themselves would live update everybody on a Discord server. Based on how crucial each series is in the Rival series due to short League Play, this is quite unacceptable. I agree. Out of the 28 League Play matches in last season in Europe, 8 of them were off-stream. In your opinion, what's the best solution for Psyonix to act upon this to give the viewers the easiest solution to follow all the matches? Isn't it obvious?
Is it? Yeah.
Isn't it obvious,
the one
guys?
we've been saying, and
for the past fucking 2 months, like a secondary stream. you know, that you have the secondary channel. Like, here's the thing, right? Here's the thing that I suggested back in the day, to kind of compromise on all aspects, because one of the things that I wanted to do is I wanted to cast those matches, but I'm not going to go ahead and fucking, you know, I'm not going to go ahead and go back on Psyonix's own copyright approvals or own copyright, because they can very easily strike my channel and get me into a lot of trouble. I may never work on RLRS or RLCS ever if that was the case. So what I want is just for them to say blanket, or to get a streamer system going like DreamHack are doing right now, where they can give you the opportunity to cast matches depending on the day, depending on the bracket, depending on whatever circumstances. And I think that system would work well for RLRS, essentially. Just give it out to the community. Let us do it, because you either don't have the budget or don't have the capabilities. I don't know what that is. You know, I don't know what the issue is in terms of putting off-stream matches up, because they don't want to put extra weeks in, apparently, to do those matches. They don't want to put extra weeks into broadcast them. So set up a second stream. Have that run side by side. Or, again, give it to us.
It'd just be a stream key, which for most people, you would just literally put into the one I always use as VLC. So essentially, you receive whatever someone at Psyonix would be broadcasting out, and then we just get a live feed of footage. So we can't adjust the game. We can't literally, I would say, cock up anything. It's the safest way to do it if you're worried about, you know, someone messing up an official game.
And that's the thing as well. That's the reason why I love the system the most, because it allows other casters to get involved. Like, you know, if you were just to say, like, look, we're going to open this up, so now if you apply, we'll give you the clean feed, and then you can stream it on your own channel. That not only, like, you know, cleans the plate of any Psyonix involvement in terms of the casting as a whole, it also gives a chance for other casters to get involved, you know, to have like a chance to cast. Because the one thing that I find is really lacking when it comes to the bubble scene, like, you know, the players are doing great, the teams are looking good. What about casters though? Like, let's think about like, you know, the level of talent, the levels of talent we have in Rocket League right now. You've got the top RLCS guys, right, in Europe, just isolating Europe individually. We've got the RLCS guys who are doing all the broadcasts for Psyonix, the RLRS guys who are doing the broadcasting for Psyonix for the RLRS stream, so that's your Jorby, that's your Subi Smash, etc. Below that, you've got the Gfinity Elite Series guys, which is on set, this Cole and Stumpy, Shogun, Johnny Boy, those guys. And then below that, you've got me and you. I don't count myself as Elite Series because I only did one fucking broadcast, but you got me, you, Jam, Crafters, and Ira League. And everybody else that wants to get involved right now can't, because all the community stuff is taken up by us. And there's
stuff.
Exactly, you know, the weeklies are gone.
So weeklies are still going on, but they're, you know, I said earlier about Reddit Cups and that within the old Titanfall scene, that's what's still going on. It's more just a couple of friends like, oh, let's put on a tournament, you know, £30, and they'll just run it randomly as little one-offs. They're still going on, but the problem is that no players are looking for that, because at the same time, bubble scenes are like, players aren't taking advantage of this. They think they're a little bit above it, which I don't know. It's a difference in mentality from when Rocket League first started out, where they could, like, because these tournaments either don't have a caster because they're just doing it as a friends, or if they did see the opportunity, like saw that your Echo Zulu or MCon, even though MCon aren't about anymore, they're now Dutch Bim Bam, I think their team name is. If they had signed up for that, then suddenly some of these, I would say, streamers, like Rocket League streamers, because they've only got like 10 viewers on their own channel, and that, where they're just coming through and building up, they'd see that and go, oh, I want to try my hand at casting and do that. That's the natural progression of things. The problem is that players aren't signed up for these little weekly, I say weekly tournaments, but these rando cups and that, so there's nothing being formed anymore. These tournaments are dying because essentially weeklies are just dropping money into the toilet, essentially, because you don't make any money off it unless you can somehow get enough subscribers on Twitch or the donations come through. So for this sort of like scene, they just need to, players need to actually make the step forward and support these new come-throughs. I mean,
what I was going to say is, like, if you want to try and kickstart some new casters and you want to get them a good opportunity, give out the stream key, give out the stuff for the RLRS off stream matches, and say stream it on your own channels. You know, that's how I got started in Counter-Strike way back in 2015. I got some really shitty leagues that didn't have any casters. I said, I'll do your matches, and I started getting open IPs off HLTV, started streaming that shit, and then that's how I got noticed. That's how I got recognized. And consider where I'm at right now. Like, a lot of people in Counter-Strike and Rocket League think I'm fucking white hot right now. Now, that's their words, not mine. Not to toot my own horn or anything, but if that's my humble beginning right there, who else is going to come up through that sort of way? Who else is going to come up through that opportunity? Is like, I'm going to get to stream some RLRS matches, some really good fucking Rocket League, hone my craft, and get noticed by people who might say, wow, he's really good. I'd love to see him on the RLRS Grand Finals. I'd love to see him doing the Gfinity Elite Series. I'd love to see him doing, I'd love to see him at the fucking World Championship, you know?
You just got to go through the stages, and you've got to start somewhere.
And the problem is that where's that start gone? It used to be in the weeklies, but the weeklies aren't relevant anymore, understandably, because that's how esports progresses. You know, I can't expect the pro players and the other, the rest of the scene to sort of like, just try and keep those alive, because they're not really worth that much in the grand scheme of things. Most TOs don't even want to stream their weeklies, because what's the fucking point? And again, when it comes to the big monthlies, like, the Winter Open or the the Coliseum and shit like that, or the Renegade Cups, like, again, we're the ones in top contention for stuff like that. Like we're the ones who are, and really, I'll even say this off the back, even third-party leagues that aren't even sponsored by Psyonix are coming to us and asking us for their own help. I've already in the last month been approached by 2 TOs, not going to say their names because chances are some of these leagues might not actually be going on, but they've asked me to come and do their tournaments right now. So,
yeah, there's a lot of consulting looking into Rocket League at the moment for us to deal with, and that's good and exciting. So, happy days.
Indeed, right. So, in terms of solutions, again, that's one of my ideal solutions right there. Just open it up and let whoever cast. The other one, obviously, would just be pay us to do a second stream, right? Have it put us on the RLEsports Twitch channel, or the third option, which I think would be the best option. Obviously, it will take a lot of money. Is just to add some extra fucking broadcast days. Just add some more broadcast days.
For me, the best solution would sort of be just on the RLEsports channel, get in cheaper casters. Essentially, like I said, askers will be asking for a lower wage, and just do it very much like, I want to say, what you see with Counter-Strike with like the IEM series and that, where they have the sort of off-stream matches where essentially you don't have cameras, you just have voice coming over, because that looks more professional than, quite honestly, a couple of guys in their bedroom. Just so you just do it very clean slate, professional. Psyonix approves everything, and then all you're doing is getting these guys' voice in, and you've got control over everything else. That's probably, I would say, the best solution for Psyonix when it's the RLRS series, to keep that sort of professionality there. But when we're looking at other stuff, maybe down the line, if RLRS was to expand, they couldn't cover every single match, then on the same day having these little B streams go off, or send out the stream key essentially to these other people so that they can do it on their channel. Imagine if for these, say, 8 matches now, there's the stream key put out, and you could see Johnny Boy and Shogun. Say Shogun doesn't make it at RLCS this season, that'd be a massive crying shame, to be honest. But they would be on Shogun's channel or Johnny Boy's channel, casting over it. On another stream, you'd have Colin Stumpy doing that, and then say me and Jay on Rewind
AfterShock.
or AfterShock, whatever, doing that. And then it just basically means for fans, they can go, oh, okay, I don't like Jay and Bacon's casting style, but I like what Colin Stumpy do, so I'll go watch there. That's what it is for me anyway. It's more for fans to be able to see who they enjoy the casting style of, and be able to see, and still see the match. That for me is the best compromise, and most of us would probably do it for free, considering that, we want to cast over it at this level. We'd want to do it for free. When you're doing bigger stuff, then that's where you want to be paid for it.
Yeah, exactly. Again, that seems to be like that's my foolproof solution right there. So that's what I think needs to happen. I absolutely agree with Lucas here. I absolutely think that all the matches need to be streamed on RLRS, because it was a case that I think it was 2 off-stream matches that stopped Secret from getting into the promotion.
Two of the deciding matches were amongst that, which was bad.
Exactly. Like, those matches should have been on stream. I don't think there's no fucking arguments there. Absolutely should have been on stream, those 2 matches. So let's hope that actually comes in and actually happens over the next season. I know Shice listens to this show. Come on, my dude. Let's give the people what they want. Let's give the people what they fucking want. So thank you very much, Lucas, for your question. Let's move on to Switch. He asks, who is your favourite to promote to the RLCS next season, and why is it Teamus Weemus? Is Trox in the chat right now? Hold on. No, he's not. Okay, it's definitely not going to be Teamus Weemus, boys, right? Let's just fucking... Good memes. Good, solid memes, thank you very much, but obviously it's not going to be Teamus Weemus. But I do want to take the serious part of this question, because this is a bit more of a predictive style of thing. It's not like last week where we sort of broke down all the bubble teams and we was like, who's going to be... who's going to be, who's going to be the favourites to make the RLRS? We're going to be looking at, we're going to be looking at sort of, who out of everybody in the bubble scene plus everybody in the current RLRS circuit are going to be looking at potentially promotion to the RLCS, because there are a few fucking names. Like we already mentioned, Method is potentially one of those guys, and obviously Complexity is obviously the team that got relegated last season. They're looking pretty baller at the moment with yeah, Veloce as well, obviously. These are two teams that had one roster move and suddenly catapulted themselves back into, relevancy all of a sudden. So, those are two of the names I certainly want to be looking at. Between those three, that's already going to be pretty ferocious competition to see who's going to make it into RLCS.
I'm going to say as well, Jay, it's going to be one of those three. I don't expect a new team to make it through this season straight away because it's a big step up. But... if we did have one team that was able to make it through, ARG, we all know it. We haven't seen them for a month because that's just the way it is. But definitely we'll be having a look at the DreamHacks or qualifiers. That will actually be taking place during the RLRS. But the DreamHack qualifiers should hopefully give us a better understanding of the level they are against RLCS teams anyway. But for me, it's it's Complexity, Method, Veloce, or ARG. I would even go out on a limb and probably say I don't think Method is making it through. They will stay up, but I don't think... to me, they're the weakest out of that four. Behind that would be ARG, probably following as the second weakest. And then Complexity versus Veloce. It depends how the cards fall that season, but I can say that I reckon we will have one team moving up because, again, with how we've seen everything, Mouse are probably moving down. That's just the way it is.
That's the key thing right there, is the fact that Mouse are moving down, right?
In a way,
that's something we're 85% confident about.
They've got a month to just completely change things around, and we know that's enough time to change things around. So if Mouse come in hot as hell into the season, or even though, because, we've got nuts teams in the RLCS, if they just make it through, but then just dominate the promotion relegation tournament, I'll be happy, because I want Mouse to prove me wrong. I want a team that looks bad to turn things around and do real good, because I've got nothing against the players. They're good players, but it's just they're weaker than the competition, it seems. It's just the fact.
Yeah. I mean, I certainly can agree to that to a certain extent. Again, I feel like that there's going to be... I feel like there's a lot of teams that could very easily make upset runs, though, in the RS next season. So, again, that's one of the reasons why even a Reddit thread went up earlier today saying, isn't this season the most stacked for EU it's ever been? It's yes. That's every fucking season.
We've gone from a season where we thought two teams were just going to run away with it to a season where we've got 7 teams which could all rightfully get a spot there, and that's absolutely nuts. Again, I say 7.
And the 128 behind that could potentially make dark horse runs. It's fucking mad. EU is fucking mad right now. So get hyped about the RLRS next season. And again, thank you, Switch, for your question, because it's a fucking good one.
One thing I would love to see, a Complexity, or let's just say Method take the DreamHack qualifiers and get their spot, one of the two to go along, and then just see what is the RLRS level compared to NA again, because we saw it at Leipzig and from the bubble scene as well, and I reckon that could be an eye opener to how good EU is at the moment.
Well, we'll talk more about that, I think, in our feature of the day, because obviously, as is mentioned, we're going to be, you know how America has their State of the Union address? Yeah, well, we're going to be doing our State of the Esports scene address right here. That was where I got the idea from, actually. I was listening to a Rise Against album, and essentially, it's fucking screamo metal shit, essentially, and it's just in part where it's fucking ripping into the red, white, and blue, talking about State of the Union address, and it's fucking salute the flag and shit. So I was like, fuck it, let's take that attitude into this next next episodes, we talk about some of the various bits and pieces in regards to Rocket League Esports. So I feel like there's been a bunch of topics that have come in and gone out of conversation ever since we started this show back all the way in September. So, you know, there's a lot to talk about, you know, when it comes to looking at the overall state of Rocket League Esports right now. That includes stuff like in-game items, the bubble scene, career, professional viability, essentially. So let's go through these one at a time and start with probably the thing that's on most people's minds at the moment, because there's been a lot of buzz around it lately. It's org items in the game. Now, from Psyonix's part, we haven't heard much since their initial press release, and I think there's still a lot of skepticism around it, because when people took a step back and looked at that, you know, looked at that like press release and that announcement, like a lot of people still had a lot of skepticisms in regards to how well it's going to go over. And with the fact that Psyonix have already said we can't just slap logos on cars, and they've already just done that with the MLB update, like, you know, I'm not sure what the current situation is in the Rocket League, in the Psyonix camp, you know.
To be frank, the whole sort of like rumor going around was that part of TSM joining Rocket League was that esports items had to be there and that they had to be publicly announced, and hence why Psyonix had that sort of rushed, oh, we've got this down the line, because they would have had esports items planned for down the line, but it was sort of all brought forward and it had to be announced to get TSM into the ecosystem, which is fair enough. You want TSM in there, but it's still that case of they hadn't had anything planned, or well, they didn't have anything in production back during, Christ, was it October and November? It was announced, I think, November, like middle of November, before last LAN anyway. And so that's why there was a lot of skepticism about it, was that it was just sort of like they were doing esports items because they had to do esports items, not because they want to, which is a bit of a difference, you know? Like, we were saying earlier about, like, Marky Dude, our Doomsday, and that we want them to do a job which they want to do. Like, if you're doing it because you have to, or you're just paid to do it, then the quality of content isn't as good, you know?
Yeah, most certainly, and I feel like that certainly is what we have at the moment in regards to the RLCS, or just all items in general, actually, because, like, you know, especially when it comes to Psyonix as a whole, it feels like their esports team is more of an afterthought in the grand scale of the company. I have absolutely nothing but respect for Corey and Scheist and Shyla, but all of the decisions that seem to be made, they don't feel like esports centric decisions, and I feel like that's more to do with the guys at the top, you know, the CEOs, the suits as we call them.
Well, I was going to say, like, the decisions, isn't respective upon the esports team, because the esports team has to go to the directors and the higher ups to get everything approved. That's the difference. There's a lot. It definitely feels like the guys making the final calls and stuff aren't the guys that know the scene. It's a very disjointed affair. That's what it feels like, anyway.
Yeah, most certainly. And again, I fear for the in-game items thing, because, like, you know, with this being such an important feature in regards to Rocket League, considering that virtually every fucking game that's worth their salt has some sort of way to fund, you know, some sort of like revenue share funding opportunity with an organization, whether that be through franchising, whether that be through in-game items like Psyonix and Valve tried to do, you know, all of these things, you know, like, they have to be done the right way, and if they're not done the right way, then shit's not gonna go well. And if it's the point where it's just like, you know, they'll put in, if it's something that they're just gonna really do underwhelm and underdeliver with this, then we're gonna have a few problems, I think, when it comes to Rocket League. Because as you were saying, Bacon, like, this can be the year where Rocket League really takes off. But there's still a lot of skepticism when it comes to looking at the intricacies of the scene right now, you know?
Yeah, for me, again, it all comes down, and this is one of our points later on, it's the communication. We just want to know what's going on to near enough put any worries aside. And so for us to near enough get this one blank statement and then quiet for months, we're talking like 4 months now, 5 months nearly, that's the bit which just gets everyone to go. And that's just the one thing I'd say, the biggest thing that Psyonix need to clean up on.
Absolutely. But yeah, and we'll talk more about that in a minute, because that's my final point, because it is absolutely fucking crucial, that one. Let's go through a few more things. We're talking about third-party tournaments next, because I want to see more third-party tournaments, you know. We've already seen, you know, absolute bangers start coming out. You know, WSOE might not have had the greatest production, but it still felt like it had a lot of promise behind them, putting in, you know, the location of Vegas and everything. DreamHack obviously fucking smashed it out the park with Leipzig, and all the community TOs did amazing with the Renegade Cup monthlies, so I want to see more third-party tournaments tournaments come through in a Rocket League space. The problem is that I still think that it's too heavy-handed an approach right now. You know, Psyonix is sort of like, you know, attitudes and sort of like, you know, like sort of like mindset in regards to how like the third-party tournaments are run. And I sort of talk about the community guidelines mostly, because like those are the main things that sort of like hinder a lot of like tournament organizers from getting involved. Like I mentioned a moment ago that I was talking to a few TOs recently. One of them said, "Look, what we want to do is we want to run this league. We want to run about, you know, €3,000, but we can't get. We're struggling to get sponsors. So what we want to do is we want to actually charge a small entrance fee, like, you know, a $5 or something for the players." But the community guidelines specifically outrule the idea of like, look, you can't ask players to fund the prize pool, you know. And there's other various restrictions.
Though, I agree with that. I don't think players should have to pay.
No,
entry,
absolutely not.
But
I don't think so either. But like at the end of the day, with sponsors still being very skeptical about Rocket League tournaments, how else are you going to fund these things?
So yeah, definitely on that, like. I said it earlier about the whole sort of like you need the Psyonix badge of approval. So as soon as you can get I'm just going to take the Renegade Cup stuff because we saw with the Thunderdome, you know, coming out from Veritas, it was that case of as soon as you've got a Psyonix property which you can work with, then sponsors are happy to get on board. The only problem was back when it was during the Renegade Cup, it was too quick a turnaround time. For us, near enough, it was under a month from knowing you've got that the next month to you having to put it on. So from day of confirmation that yes, you're going to have, say, for Rewind, it was the December monthly. You'd be looking at the back at like we're talking like. It was like the very last week of October. So it was a very quick, you had to turn everything around in. And unfortunately, sponsors don't work like that. Going to Logitech, going to, let's say, Intel, whatever, they can't work in that period of time because they've got to go have all meetings about it, turn around the budget. Yes, we agree to all of that. You've got to have meetings with them. It don't work. Jay, you know, one of the things I'm trying to set up is all the way in October. And I'm getting it set up now. Yeah.
I think when people look at a lot of tournament organizers, like, you know, especially when you take a look at some of the bigger ones, even then, like the substandard sort of like even the DreamHacks, you know, the small expos where they run like some small tournaments like a DreamHack Open or a DreamHack Pro Circuit or, you know, a Rainbow Six Open, all from the DreamHack setting, like. Fucking Leipzig was about 6-7 months in the pipeline. They booked the venue out way before then. They were planning for all logistics. They were fucking, you know, making sure they had spaces, making sure they had casters, making sure they had all that shit in place, so that way that could work out when it did earlier this year.
Normally the last thing there.
Exactly.
Casters
are usually the last thing, and even that's organised at least a couple months in advance.
Yeah,
you know, like I'm talking from experience, right? I was asked to work a event in Bucharest, fucking. You know, 2 months prior, ESL reached out to me, asked me to go work in Bucharest for 2 months in advance. You know, the event was in December. I was asked in October. You know, like that's how much planning goes behind these things. You know, and I feel like that's something that a lot of people don't seem to grasp when it comes to third party tournaments. So, you know, like if you want us to get professional, you have to give us that professional avenue. And another thing in regards to sponsors as well is that you mentioned as soon as you have that Psyonix seal of approval, you've got everything in the bag. That is most certainly the case, you know, but it's a bit of a catch-22 because Psyonix don't want to get involved because they don't want to pump so much money into a project, but the project can't get started and get sponsors until Psyonix goes ahead and sponsors it already. You know, we saw this with APL. You know, Asia Pro League could have been into season 4 or 5 right now. But they couldn't because they couldn't secure sponsors because they couldn't secure support from Psyonix, you know? And it's a catch-22 if it's like, well, you want your esports scene to succeed. You can't do it off your own back, you know?
Yeah, it's basically giving trust. So I'd say, if anything, it's more just having some, like, for a season of APL, let's just say this third current season right now, if they want to know that they can trust them, they're going to have to work with them, give them a little bit of leeway. It's always about, you know, give them a little bit of rope for them to be able to pull themselves along. So not funding it, but giving it in all the support. For example, any experience, like a member of the team is just always there to open and how to deal with things, that sort of thing. And then an insight on how to you run yourself, so that the next season they've got the confidence that you're going to be able to put on a bigger, better tournament, to which they will give you some funding. After that, you've got the Sonic seal of approval, to which then you're going to be able to go to sponsors and get in. I will say though, with APL, that's a bit of a different case, because what they had, like Royal Never Give Up and all of that from the Chinese region, which for me is a big impressive thing, because it means that China would want in on Rocket League.
I'm not sure about that, because like they're still not sponsored by Sonic. It's still its own independent thing. You know, it's all like self-funded by all the Asian, or like RL India, 1NE, etc. They all do that.
Oh, it's Tasty Tea near enough through and through. It's doing 90% of it.
Like Sonics don't actually support that whole thing, and they're still fucking grinding their way to get that support, because they still don't have it. You know, and in a case, you know, it would again, it probably could be a higher price pool event right now, possibly in the RLCS circuit. If it got that initial support, you know. So, you know, when it comes to funding third-party tournaments...
Oh, we've already had it from Cloud and that. Like, the original plans for when Twitch were on board was to have Asia and South America in by, like, Season 4 and 5 of RLCS, and we're coming up to Season 7 now and just getting South America in. So, it just shows, like... The loss of Twitch slowed down the development of the scene, which is understandable, because Twitch had all
Twitch know what the fuck they're doing.
Like... Say, just for example, all the venues were arranged by Twitch. It wasn't the RLCS after party, it's the Twitch after party after the events and everything like that. And so that's just how it sort of went about. So the loss of Twitch slowed them down, because they had to take 2 seasons to essentially learn everything themselves. And now we're starting to see Sonics be able to grow.
Yeah, but I still think that there's things that need to be changed. Actually, I want to talk a bit more about those community organizer guidelines, essentially, because I mentioned a little bit about how it does slow down third-party tournaments, but allow me to put a few quotes in about sort of like why they are so, I want to say, unreasonable to a certain extent. Actually, let me see if I can bring it up on Google, because I did look at these earlier, and I want to get some specific numbers that show exactly what I'm talking about. So we obviously know about the 5... Yeah, so we obviously know about the $5,000 prize pool for one of your tournaments, and the $50,000 total for the entire year, and then you don't need Silex's permission. But there's a point below that says the maximum value of compensation you can receive related to your tournament is $50,000. So for those of you who don't know what that means, basically that says you can't make more than $50,000 off of this tournament. I don't know if you've been to ESL or DreamHack, but let me tell you that DreamHack Pro Circuit is making more than $50,000 in profit right now. And certainly when you go further up the food chain, it's going to be a case that people want more and more money out of this thing. That's what sponsors are for.
At the same time, though, I'm just saying, so the value of... so it's more... The prize pool, what that's coming to is $50,000 across the year. Not how much money you can make, but each individual...
Read the point below it. Read the point below it.
Okay, yep. Yep, no, sorry, I'm being dumb. But sorry, prize pools as well are $50,000 across the whole year over a 12-month period, with each tournament being a maximum of $5,000. That's how it works as well. Exactly.
You know, and again, it's pretty fucking, you know, that means that if you wanted to run like a tournament circuit of $5,000 a month, then you actually couldn't do it, because not only would be capping it out on the individual tournament basis, but also the $50,000 would actually be hit by month 10. So you'd have to take at least 2 months off. And again, that's the reason why. Sorry, I just knocked over a can of Coke. That's the reason why it's empty. Don't worry, it's fine. But that's the reason why like Rival haven't gone over $1,000 per month, because number one, they can't afford it. Number two, you know, it breaks some rules within the context of Psyonix, and even to the point where they're saying you can't make, like, you know, it's very restricted to say it's kind of, there's a certain level of restriction saying, look, you can't offer this much money. There's another thing also saying, look, you can't make this much money off of the tournament itself, and it's just like. That is like a very authoritarian level of thing, and
I'm just going to say though, if someone can make $50,000 in profit from a $5,000 prize pool, I don't know what you're doing, but that's fucking amazing. So that's not the problem for me. It is purely that prize pool is so low, because again, $5,000 prize pool is like that is your monthly events. That's your rival sort of like level, because any sponsors coming in do want to put that a little bit higher because they know that's where the viewership comes in. Like your $5,000 will get you a few thousand, but you bump that up to 10, you bump that up to 15, and that jumps up quite quickly, the interest, because you've got all the big RLCS teams then interested in it.
Yeah, and then you also talk about like crowdfunding in this sort of like thing. They say that you're allowed to have crowdfunding, but all those contributions must go to the prize pool or the players participating and stay under the amount that they've just listed. So it's like, you know, you want the community to grow. To, you know, again, we need to see more support for the third party tournaments. We need to see more support for the bubble scene, because without that, the rest of the scene will crumble underneath it. And you want us to grow, but you can't let us grow without, you know, you can't let us grow with these sort of restrictions in place, I don't think.
So,
you know?
Just going back to the Gold Rush sort of thing, one of the points that James Watt did talk about was that the way Sonics weren't happy with the way they were running things. He didn't go much into it, but that was one of the limitations. It could be just because, I'm just using it as an example, Gold Rush, with how they did stuff, the money went into not only buying yourself merch, for example, but it didn't necessarily go into the prize pools. It went into getting people there, and that could be part of like a little bit of a contradiction to why Sonics weren't happy with how they were running things. Just as an insight, maybe that sort of thing they're not happy with. Because you're paying to sort of like, you're paying advertisement essentially by getting players there. You're paying production costs, you're not paying the prize pool. If that makes sense.
And again, it's a bit weird. It's like, come on, guys, like, you know, like like, you know, prize pool's not the only thing that costs money. You know, like, it costs money to staff the event. It costs money to pay the production fees we just mentioned. It costs money to fucking get people out there. You know, like, flights ain't cheap. You know, like that shit you got to factor into the budget, and it's like you can't take more than $50,000. You can't get crowdfunding. You can't get this. You can't get that. You can't do any of these things. And with how old these are, because like if you scroll to the bottom, you'll see that the last changed updates was on the 21st of February 2018. It's been a year since these were last touched, but these are still the law but this is basically the word of the law that's been, you know, enforced when it comes to running third-party tournaments without Psyonix's guiding hand. And it's like, this is fucking restrictive as anything. Like, if there's a time for it to be revised, it's now. You know, like we need to rethink these rules. We need to think about how the growing of the scene is going to go forward, because we've got $1 million in the RLCS right now, but how is everything else going to be able to support that when it's Psyonix essentially only being the only really premier tournament organizer right now?
I do know one org that has gone over this and not been hurt by it, because basically they did get in contact with Psyonix but then got no response back. So they never got like a cease and desist. They just kept going on. They've tried to get in contact with Psyonix and just never a response, which was a little bit weird from what they were saying. Because again, that was
who was this?
I'm not saying, because that would be
Well,
bad.
to me.
No, but essentially it was just it was that sort of case of they weren't doing anything wrong, they weren't shady, so just keep going with it.
Did you finish?
Nah, it's not an EU region thing, don't worry.
Oh, bollocks.
I was only
whatever.
consulting on that, I didn't cast it.
Anyways, but yeah, like I think for the bubble scene, it will help the bubble scene, it will help the community scene, it will help the tournament scene as a whole if we just laxed a few of those things. Again, I mentioned it in the past, if you just took away that $50,000 profit thing and you raised the prize pool for individual tournaments to $50,000, then I think that we'd get a lot more TOs involved, you know? I
wouldn't say 50,000 because I can understand that's like where they definitely want 50,000, like WSOE, for example, to be their major events, definitely invitational and set up that way. So the raise up to, I would say, 20,000 would be completely understandable. Like, that's the level I reckon we're at now. And then the following year they raise it even more. Like, do it in steps.
I want community guidelines to be able to essentially, what I see this as a guidelines of like, look, you can run our tournament you can run any tournament you want, so long as without our permission, so long as you fit within these rules. So I want some rules that not only allows the community scene to be able to do some ambitious stuff or try some ambitious stuff, but I also want to see stuff like WSOE become self-funded without the need for Psyonix. I want to see DreamHack do their own tournament circuit without the need of getting Psyonix involved, because they already know how to get sponsors outside of the scene. They already know how to get a prize pool funded. You know, these are all, you know, names and people and organizations that have been around esports for a long time. They know how to get, you know, they know how to run a tournament without getting developer support. So it's like, well, why does Psyonix need to sponsor WSOE? Why does it need to sponsor the pro circuit when these TOs could run it of their own accord? Like, maybe you could get rid of that rule, or like, you know, raise it to $50,000, $100,000, and then add a second rule is like, look, it can't interfere with the RLCS calendar or something like that. It's like, okay, well, now RLCS is the de facto world championship. Nothing can fucking touch it now because you said if it interferes with the calendar thing, we can cease and desist.
The problem
now,
is then
you can also run the trade-off
out months ahead, which we don't have. That's your only problem with
We're
that.
coming to that. We're coming to that, right? Okay.
I have literally asked for about 3 different tournament orgs and been asked, like, oh, when is RLCS Land Finals? Like, I don't know, because I've got the same info as what you guys have, apart from a couple of rumors that, you know, get spread by the grapevine. And it's that case of, I've gone to Psyonix and asked, would this date conflict? And they're like, we can't tell you. Okay. So you're putting on hold other TOs.
Again, we're getting to that.
The scene. Yeah,
we're getting to that, right? But like, I think that this would solve a lot of problems when it comes to self-funded tournaments, because that way, DreamHack can run pro circuit without Psyonix needing to get their fucking, you know, hands dirty. Same thing with WSOE. Same thing for E-League. You know, and again, add a rule that says can't interfere with the calendar thing, and then communicate that calendar. Which again, we're coming to that in a bit more detail in a moment's time. But yeah. Let's talk about the bubble scene itself. You know, because while I do think that, you know, great other third-party tournaments and community tournaments will help the bubble scene by a much bigger margin, you know, it sucks that we don't have an official pathway to the RLCS. You know, like, that's the one thing I think that we need, you know, it's about on similar level to that sort of like third-party thing. You know, I want to see a third tier or a fourth tier to the RLCS structure, because I think that there's a lot of teams that could absolutely rock it down over there. And I think, again, we were discussions we were having in previous weeks about how it would also help out smaller organizations with sponsors having, you know, being part of an official Rocket League, Psyonix sanctioned league. That would help things out. That would help things immensely for the bubble scene.
Definitely, like, the best, and it's going to cost a bit, is near enough take the Gfinity structure with draftees, and instead of it being draftees, it's like team spots. So essentially you would have a third tier, give out weekly events to, I'm just going to use EU for example, the big 3. I know Rival, Rewind and Rocket Baguette. They each put on £150 tournament each a week, so that's then what, 450 a week going to teams, and you lock out the RLCS teams. You could allow the RLRS, like the Renegade Cup, to have that sort of bar set, and essentially you just you get points over the say the 3-month period, to which at the end of that you're then invited, the top 8 teams or whatever, to the third tier of the RL series or whatever. And that for me would probably be the best idea, to sort of like get that pathway through. And even then you could do that as like an invitational, the top 8 go there, to which that then feeds into the bottom 4 of RLRS, and you've got a 12-team league with the, when you lose in the RLRS you go to that sort of league, so that you've got an 8-team sort of like whatever. Yeah, basically we need expansion.
That's the short and thick of it right there. Yeah, basically.
Expansion.
Like, for me, the ideal way would be, again, I referred to the ESL, ESCA system before, and again, I referred to it again, because it just makes so much sense. You know, it's such a well-defined system for supporting, you know, the highest tiers of competition as well as the lowest open sort of like, you know, starting up very grassroots sort of stuff. Again, if we had something like that in place for Rocket League, like, it would do everybody a world of wonders. It would give the bubble scene guys a little something to look forward to and a chance to qualify to a chance to be part of something bigger, basically. You know, that's the point of the ESCA system, and the reason why I want to implement it into the RLCS. And it's kind of frustrating as well that we don't get this shit when meanwhile we've got Collegiate Rocket League, which is getting so much attention right now. And I was watching some of the Collegiate Rocket League stuff. Like, great production quality and great stuff, but fucking hell, when the Renegade Cup Finals gets more viewers than a fucking, than CRL, we've got problems, guys. We've got really big fucking problems.
Yeah, and I'm at the same time, we just saw in chat there from Lucas about how the Rocket League esports website is a bit of a letdown. Like, where on earth is the Collegegate Rocket League articles and that on? Why are they not writing about that? If you're going to go in, go fully in. The website is like, the articles like they're doing, the pro player ones are pretty cool. I'm enjoying them. I'm liking it. But when they're still showing the teams from last season, like that's not updated, saying that Complexity and Fnatic were relegated down.
This is great. Sorry, this is fantastic because it all loops back in. It's like, what's the one thing we want the most? It's communication about all of these fucking details. That's the one thing we want the most right now. And it's like all of it seems to fucking come full circle. Apparently, like shit. That's absolutely incredible.
Things aren't being kept up to date, and then not actually easily visible. If you were to just look this up for the first time and you look at the Rocket League website, you're just there going, like, we've got results that are so out of date, it's ridiculous, and it seems like they just don't care about it, which it's just a half-assed approach to it all, and it's wrong because we know how much the science team care.
I'm gonna put the lack of the website issues down to more lack of resources, I think, because we know how very hampered those guys are in the esports team at Psyonix. But again, I feel like it's something that should be improved. I would much rather see articles about bubble scene players because that shit interests me more than CRL. And apparently that also goes to be the case for the rest of the scene because, as I mentioned, Renegade Cup, even the first 2 monthlies of the Renegade Cup got more viewers than CRL did. And it's the same thing for the Renegade Cup Finals. That got more viewers hosted on the main fucking Psyonix stream. Like, the first 2 months weren't even hosted on the main Psyonix channel. Like, and even then that got more viewers. It's like, guys, the fucking priorities are wrong, We don't have the right priorities in place for this scene right now. And, I think collegiate esports is a great thing, but it needs to come in at the right time. And right now, we need to define the rest of the scene before we move on to collegiate stuff. That's the grassroots for the future. That's something that, for now, let's focus on the grassroots of now because that's where we need it to. That's what we need to focus on. That's what needs to be built up at the moment. And yeah, it's kind of fucking frustrating, just seeing the way that things have been handled in regards to that.
Just looking as well at chat from Lucas with Thunder and getting Twitch front page. Twitch are very much, because from experience here, they only wanted the finals to be on Twitch front page, so that's why the finals suddenly got that big boost as well because people could suddenly see it. The hosting from Psyonix was very up and down, whether we got hosts or not. No idea what was going on with that because you would hope they'd be hosting from the Rocket League channel every single time, but that was very like up and down whether you were hosting or not. That could be, I reckon for them that was more like just seeing the number difference and how much that impacted it, because definitely throughout, I can remember with the first one, the Rocket League Grand Prix, you saw there was actually a good, say, 600 or so bots coming across from that were left over from the RLCS, and that because RLCS had only just wrapped up or whatever tournaments on there before, I can't remember. So you could definitely see those numbers cross, but it's a weird landscape, and it feels again very much half measures being put in place, like not a full sort of like therefore attention isn't being applied to any one subject. It's a lot of mismatched approaches, and it's weird, and that sort of style isn't going to get you the full results.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard the Valve comparison a lot because Valve themselves also have very mismatched approaches and they don't really focus too much on paying attention to the scene. But that can only work because, Valve only sponsors 6 weeks out of the entire calendar year, essentially. That's all they focus on. And even then, they don't even do it directly. They give it to partners. They give it to ESL, they give it to Face It, they give it to StarLadder recently, actually. That's really fucking cool. I'm going to see if I can get myself involved in that minor. But
that's the sort of thing at the same time, though. We wouldn't mind if Rocket League had was given like ESL, MLG, all of that sort of lot. You're there going, they know how to run. Give them
that's
full
the thing.
range.
They don't do that but they have a very Valve approach to it, so it doesn't work in the same sort of way. Like, I've seen a lot of defenders give that sort of quote, and it's like, no, that's not giving the full story there. And certainly, like, you know, when it comes to the way that they've handled Bubble Steam and the way it comes to handling the top tier tournaments, and again with the community guidelines we've mentioned, I'm a little bit frustrated with how things have been handled by them in that case. But I think we've focused on that a little bit too much because we've got a few more topics we want to talk about, and we're getting out of time. So let's move on to. I wanted to talk a bit about career viability for pros, and I'm not just talking about pro players. I want to approach it from a couple of different angles because I want to talk, not only focus on pro players at the top, but I also want to focus on guys like casters and content creators. Because for the pro players in the RLRS below, let's start with those guys for a start. I'm pretty sure that anyone that is in the RLRS or is below them is not full time.
University students, pretty much. That's what it is.
I think that's what it is right now, and that is that is concerning. You know, that is certainly a very concerning factor because I look at a lot of other sort of a lot of other games, like, you know, like League of Legends and Dota 2 and Counter-Strike, especially, obviously my area of expertise. Like, and a lot of the teams that are in stuff like the MDL and are competing in the small little, like, you know, loot.bet cups, you know, they're all full-time players because they're being salaried, they're being backed by sponsors, and they're making a decent amount out of prize pools and everything. And, you know, we've got $50,000 in the RLRS right now. That's the same thing as Mountain Dew League right at the moment. You know, that's the same amount of prize money. I think maybe Mountain Dew League is a little bit more, but like the tiniest fucking amount. You know, despite all that, we still haven't got the sponsors in place. We still haven't got the people available, and most of the RLRS players are not professionals, I don't think. I haven't heard of any one of those guys at the moment. I mean, at the very least. Now, I've certainly heard that the salaries are inflated to fuck when it goes to RLCS, but everybody else below that, you know, it's understandable why if you're not RLCS, you ain't fucking anything.
From what I heard, the salaries in NA were inflated for the teams that the RLRS teams that had orgs.
Of course they are. It's fucking North America. Jesus.
Yep. In EU, I'd imagine Complexity to have quite inflated salaries because they would still be under contract from the RLCS salaries. Method and Veloce and the Gfinity teams will be on a much more understandable salary where you're looking at about $1,500 a month. And for those guys, I don't know about Method, but generally for the Gfinity teams, that's just the Gfinity period, which coincides quite nicely with RLCS and RLRS anyway. For everything outside of that, you're not getting paid. So half the year, these RLRS players quite often aren't getting paid money. Like I said, that'll probably be different for Method because they've got a full-time roster, and, you know, vitality, you can say, within that because they are a Gfinity team. But that's just how it sort of works out, you know?
I mean, yeah, at the same time, though, it's like, again, I feel like in that regard, it says a lot about the state of the current state of the scene. You know, it's like, okay, well, yeah, compared to Counter-Strike, compared to Dota, the same players in the same positions aren't making a living, and it really should be the case that they are because they are some of the best in the world.
Take OCE, in what has been... Can you remember they had all those ESL tournaments going on? Like, there was an ESL LAN event like monthly at one period, and it came out from the guys from Chiefs, like Jake, and that saying no, he had to quit playing on Chiefs because it wasn't making him enough money to live off. And they were the top team in
exactly,
OCE.
You know, like that, and that's even from a region that usually is like, you know, OCE. Like, there's three regions right now that are receiving a shit ton of investment right now. That's South America, India, and OCE, because those are some really big niches. Those are some really, you know, rabid fan bases that really want to see a team do well internationally. So you're seeing a lot of like international spots being given out to OCE teams. You're seeing a lot of, a lot of sponsorship money coming into OCE right now. A lot of teams that want to add a regional squad from OCE alongside the current endemic sponsors of fucking, you know, Chiefs and Tainted Minds and whoever have you that want to support Australia and New Zealand, you know, as a region.
Well, you take Renegades,
and that's still not enough.
Like, quite often they'll take an OCE team and move that over to NA. Counter-Strike's a big example of that, you know. And I could have seen if Renegades had stuck around in it, like, that would have been the best option, would be to take one of those OCE teams and put them in NA RLCS. But of course, that sort of doesn't work, does it now?
Exactly, and again, it's like, these are the best teams in the world. Like, fucking fourth place at the last LAN for the Chiefs, and they're still not getting enough to be considered full-time professionals. Yeah, and it's just like, fuck me, man. Like that's pretty rough for some of the best players and the best teams in the world.
Well, I don't know about last LAN, but because remember Jake left the LAN before when they were coming out like 8th and that, but the difference in prize money is there from coming out 4th to 8th. Like 8th would get you across the team. It was like 10,000 or whatever back then. 4th now, I can't remember how much it was in the last LAN, but that was closer to about 40, 50,000. Which is a bigger jump.
It was a pretty big jump, but you also got to factor in the specifics of how often they're going to get that prize pool, how much does the organization take away. Like the big thing that players get is salaries, right? And that's the thing that's not there right now because it feels like there's a lot of sponsorship money going around the RLAs level.
Salaries are there, but only for RLCS. Like
exactly,
EU and
that's my point.
Thanks, Mocket. Like inflating salaries way above what they should be, even like now in the whole grand scheme of things. Like,
it's a little bit ridiculous, and it certainly like cements the whole top heavy nature of Rocket League in a sense that like even talking about casters and stuff. Again, that's another thing. Yummy Cheeseman recently went on an article with Rocketeers, and he talked about how in OCE. Your salary's not there. There's not a lot of money kicking around. Even in the freelance game, there's not a lot of money, for a caster in OCE, let alone the RLCS or the RLRS. And now that I think about it, I don't know a single caster from any of those positions that are full-time casters for Rocket League right now. I think I know that Gibbs does consultancy. James Bott obviously works for Twitch. Beard,
Wave does his whole Fortnite stuff. Yeah. Wave does the Twitch rivals. That's the natural scene of being a caster. You don't just do one game and
but that's not the thing, though. That's
most of the time.
That's not a thing, though. Because like they're all doing different things that are not casting. Now, I'm a full-time caster because I make so much fucking money out of Counter-Strike, right? I say I'm an esports caster. The truth is I'm a Counter-Strike caster. That's my job description by nature. Because I dabble in Rocket League and I host a podcast, right? I would never, right, consider Rocket League right now to be a viable career path as a commentator. Like, and it's part of the reason why I also think that a lot of people don't really want to go down the route of being a caster when it comes, when it comes to looking into Rocket League, and obviously that doesn't support the scene. And I think about it, and it's like shit, like that's I can't think of a single one, I cannot think of a single person who doesn't do something outside of casting. But in Counter-Strike, I can think of them all, Anyone who regularly does tier 1 and tier 2 events, they're all full-time guys. I don't even do tier 2 events, and I'm a fucking full-time guy, I'm supporting myself, I'm paying my fucking rent, the lights are on, and that's my money paying for that shit, like that's... And that's the situation I'm thinking of. That's the situation that I'm thinking of right now when it comes to Rocket League. Is that I don't see another commentator, even at the RLIS level, being able to do that. Unthink had his own job when he was doing things. Subi has his own job. Achieves, I think, has his own job as well outside of esports as a whole. Like it's still treated like even at the second tier level, that it's a very hobbyistic thing. And I think that's a very unhealthy attitude, especially when you consider that pro players themselves also have a very hobbyistic attitude as well. Like there was that tweet from about a year ago that a lot recently regurgitated where he put out was like, some of the teams in RLCS, they're fucking, they're making more than the average salary. They're making far much more than the average salary of their country, and they still don't treat it, and they still treat Rocket League as a hobby. Yeah. Like, that's a completely manic professional mindset to me.
Well, that is why you sort of like... That's changed now a little bit within RLCS, but that was why you saw Dignitas rise to the top and all that, because they put the 8 hours a day, treating it like a job, practicing in and out. And that is the big difference. Now, all the teams are doing that. That's where you're starting to see the whole of RLCS get to a level where they look bloody competitive. And we're starting to see the bubble scene start putting that time in. Again, they've got a lot of the bubble scene with Rocket League being a younger esport. They've got university or college to deal with. But that still means they're still putting in 4 to 6 hours a day into the grind of Rocket League, knowing that this is what I want to do. This is my best time to do it, because once I finish university and I can't do it full time, I don't really have a chance. It's why when the players start dropping down to RLRS, they're better, for example, Snazky, to go get a coaching job within the RLCS teams because the money isn't there at RLRS level yet to do it full time.
And really, with $1 million in your primary league, it kind of should be, you know? Like,
well, because again, we've gone over this. $1 million is a bit of a cheat because it's $1 million across NA, EU, and the conjoined tournament, you know, between them. And so it doesn't feel right because
but here's the thing,
RLRS, both sides is 50,000 for everything.
Yeah, but here's the thing, though. It's the same for the ESL Pro League. And here's the thing, the Mountain Dew League also has $50,000 aside, right? It is the same fucking system that the RLCS uses right now.
Mountain Dew League lasts way longer. For RLRS, it's not taking that time. So for teams to come in and support those players, they don't have as much incentive when there's only 28 games, 28 series. You know, they're playing 7. And if they get lucky enough, if the team does well enough, they'll get a further 2 or 3 into the promotion relegation tournament. So it's not worth it at the moment for teams to come in. That's why when a team makes RLRS, I'm going to take the example of last season with Copenhagen Flames, they'll sign up them because they've got some solid advertising there. At the moment, we don't have that.
Yeah, and that's the problem, right? We don't have that when really we should, you know. Again, it's the same funding that ESL and ESA put behind their tournaments, and we see pros all over the shot in Counter-Strike. And it's not the case. It's not the case in Rocket League, despite having the same structure, very similar prize pools. It's not 1-to-1, but it's certainly damn fucking close, you know. And it's something that still is. Again, it says a lot about the current state of professional Rocket League that some of the tier 2 players aren't full time, you know, and they aren't dedicated to working on their craft. But, you know, going back to other positions in terms of professionals, content creators is a bit hit and miss with this one because, like, you know, you got guys like Sunless Khan who can make a lot of money, obviously, because he's that much of a good content creator. But when it comes to the esports focus, obviously we just lost Rush Hour, and I can tell you from experience of running this podcast, you know, it is almost exclusively a passion project. Like, we get paid fuck all. In fact,
the biggest example is Rocket Dailies.
Yeah.
For, like, where he's got to have a full-time job alongside doing it. He was funding that all himself, taking in, like, the Patreon help in that. But, yeah, he's got a full-time job to be able to do that, and that's his passion to do.
Yeah, and again, and here's the thing: we actually sink money into these projects. Like, you know, if you factor in the money that it costs for graphics and shit, you know, like that's actually me in the negative because I paid for all that off my own fucking dime. Like, it's about, like, I'm not even ashamed to say the number. It's like, you know, at this point it's 250 euros or something, 250 quid. You know, it's like it's a lot of money that I have to put just to get the assets as well as they have. You know, I wanted a good quality show, and that's exactly what I've had, a good quality show. You know, I'd love to be able to make some of that money back, but sponsors aren't interested. I don't really want to ask people for money because, like, you know, I don't want to feel like a cheapskate, you know, unless people really actively wanted to support, in which case, well, we might be able to throw together some other perks, like, but that's another story for another day because we don't have an audience big enough.
Essentially for us, it'd be to set up a Patreon essentially next to be able to help with all that, but we
and a show of hands, how many people in the Twitch chat right now want to support our Patreon?
No.
Do you hear
Even
the crickets?
I don't like Patreons, to be honest. Like, because it feels like you're locking off content. And for this sort of style of thing, you don't want to do that. I want to make it open to everyone. So it feels bad. Like, it's the same with, like, you know, asking for questions. That's what quite a lot of people on Patreon do. And you're like, nah. It's the same with, like, if you ever see streamers do tournaments exclusive to their subs, you know, the subscribers of the channel, that to me just feels dirty. Like, no, it should be free to all. And it's really people paying if they appreciate you and put it in. But unfortunately, it ain't happened. That's why you need sponsors to reach out.
Well, I'm not too against, like, the idea of doing, like, special content. Like, if we wanted to do, like, I don't fucking know. Like, if we wanted to do, like, an extra special edition podcast or something like that, you know, like, you know, some extra bonus feature where we go even more in depth in something for, like, the really, really hardcore audience. But, you know, like, you know, again, even for a podcast standing, like, you know, I'd much rather just get a sponsor rather than, you know, just, you know, get crowdfunding and shit. So, and obviously the sponsors aren't fucking there. So we're up shit's creek without a paddle in that regard, guys. You know, if you got one, send it our way. But, you know, like, again, until that point, it definitely feels like a passion project. And again, with how hyped Rocket League has been over the past year, like, why is it still the case that this is a passion project? It doesn't make any sense to me.
Yep.
There you go. that's
no
my
answer.
2 cents on. Yeah, like not even much you can argue about that. And it's an extra concern as well when you consider that it's especially in the last few months, Rocket League has looked like it's been on a decline. When you take a look at viewership numbers, especially, like that's my next point I want to focus on, because if you go to esc.watch and you compare the metrics for season on season for for the RLCS, you'll notice that even though content hours are up, minutes watched, concurrent viewers, total viewers, they're all down by quite an amount in particular from season 6 to season 7 as well, actually.
See, I find that a weird one because...
Oh, sorry. Season 5 to season 6, excuse me. My bad. Sorry, I'm being an idiot.
What was the... Sorry, I'm just quickly having a look at Leipzig to Leipzig, because I think that would probably be the best sort of, like, understanding. And I'm having to go fucking far back to get these, of course. Trying to find the Leipzig from 2018. Come on, that's year 2 of the time, whatever. So, yeah, Leipzig went from hours watched in 2018, 982.97 thousand. So that was nearly 1 million hours watched, to 827,500 hours watched. That is about, 100,000, a little bit over that, 1,000 hours droppage. That's actually quite significant considering the prize pool was doubled, and this one I thought had more hype going on about it.
Yeah.
Total views, roughly... Actually, no. The 2018 one had more total views. Average viewership, 2018 was only up by about 5,000 more, and airtime's about the same. So what is going on? Actually, prize pool, yeah. That's, for me, I don't understand what the drop-off. For me, it's got to be there's nothing fresh about Rocket League drawing people back in, I'd
say, honestly, I'd say that, honestly, with all the issues we've stemmed out of right now in terms of the underbelly of the scene, org items, and how Sonics have handled the RLCS in comparison to third-party tournaments, yeah, we've lost a lot of viewer retention. That's our biggest problem when it comes to viewers, is the fact that Rocket League was hype as fuck in season 4. Even in season 5, it was looking pretty baller, but because we couldn't get new regions, because we couldn't get extra levels of the scene for people to focus on, for people to not only get involved in the RLCS, but also think who is the next up and coming talent right there. We weren't able to get that in time, and we have lost a number of what could otherwise be passionate fans in the game. We're passionate because we look at it in a very different light, because we've got we have a very different outlook on how Rocket League works and how the way the game is. But for the casual fan, they've moved on. We've had two or three.
I will say,
different...
looking at Leipzig though, knowing that it's going to Dallas next, you can expect viewership numbers to rocket up because of Americans. That's just the way esports is.
True.
So,
but the thing
I
is,
prefer to compare Leipzig from 2019 to Dallas, and then see how it grows over time. Because after Dallas, we'll go to Valencia and see what happens then. It's a little bit too early now. Rocket League's in a weird state of it's losing some old veteran sort of viewers, and they're not being made up by the new casuals coming through. And it'd be interesting to see how Sarnix tackles that, especially because org items don't bring in casual to the esports scene. It pays from the veterans or the enthusiasts, really. It might notify some of them, but it's not essentially... Org items aren't there for casual viewers, are they? Or not casual viewers, but casual players, to bring them into the ecosystem of esports.
Well, I mean, to a certain extent, because you also got to consider, promotion in the game is something they've also not really focused on, and if they had in-game items, people would probably look at that and probably also, from a casual perspective, get involved, because some hardcore player has bought a fucking Ghost Gaming, topper, or let's be a bit more topical, Cloud9 topper or something like that, and be like, oh, that's pretty cool, what the fuck's that about? Cloud9, or was this an esports team? There's tournaments going on. This Cloud9 is a group of elite players in the Rocket League circuit. You love to watch Rocket League because...
My bit is that only applies, though, to a very minute lot of people. The little button, for example, the little button which says, Rocket League is live, in-game is actually fantastic. But we've said it, why was that not available available for the Renegade Cup and all of that, because that's really what people should be looking at.
And that extends into my point about supporting the bubble scene and supporting the third-party tournaments, because that has not been a thing for Psyonix.
My knowledge is essentially they're Grand Champ players. Okay, we're going to suddenly hear people talking about Season 9 Grand Champ not meaning a thing. But those guys that are at the top of the ranked game that don't know anything about esports, that I bet you, if they're at that level and they found out about the bubble scene, they'd probably look at it and go, oh shit, I can actually reach that level with some grinding. And this is interesting to me, instead of not knowing about it, because the outreach at the moment for Rocket League is very much to people that already know about it. It's not going to a new audience.
Exactly, and when you start losing some people who are frustrated with the issues in regards to all the issues we brought up and we'll bring up in a minute, it's a case of it's just, who's going to come forward next? There's not a lot of inflow of fans, but there's a big outflow of people who are frustrated and increasingly getting frustrated with the way that Rocket League has gone down. That's a problem that needs to be addressed.
It's all communication.
It's all communication. What's the one thing and the one point we're going to finish off? It's communication with the rest of us, because fucking Psyonix don't have any. They don't have any whatsoever. Everyone wants to hear about what the exciting plans are for in-game items. Everybody wants to hear what the plan is for the pro circuit. Everyone wants to hear what the plan is for the RLCS and the new Renegade Cup that may or may not be coming next year. The logo says 2018 on it. Is there going to be a 2019? If so, what are we going to change? What are we going to do about it? What's going to happen in regards to the new esports stuff? It would be great if we just had a fucking weekly blog that someone from the esports, it doesn't even have to be like a regular person. Maybe 1 week Corey can do it, and the next week Gilly can do it, and the next week Shyla can do it. And it's just talk
what's
about
going on in the offices.
Yeah.
Even
what's going on in the office?
It was Brenda's birthday this weekend. So
exactly.
That's nice. That's heartfelt. Yeah.
What's going on, keep us regularly updated, give us a roadmap of what's to come, because, we've heard some things. The best roadmap we've had is that in-game items will be, supported by the end of Season 7. That's the best thing we fucking had. Okay, what about expansion? What about this RLCS expansion? What about the Worlds format? What about the bubble scene? What about other third-party tournaments? Is we going to have a Gnarly this year? I don't know. Is it really going to come back? I know we've had that partnership, but, I don't know if they're going to host another tournament. WSOE said they're going to host another tournament in 2019. What's the details on that, guys? How about fucking... I don't know, anything would be just nice to hear from them. It would give us a fantastic idea of what's actually going on, and it would also just be nice if they could respond to some of the criticisms we've given them, because, if you've listened to this podcast over the past 5-6 months, you'll know I have leveled a lot of shit Psyonix's way. And I've not heard a single thing back from them about any of that as well.
Which it could be good and bad at the same time, Jay. Because it means they're not angry at you, but they just haven't heard. But the point is that
I'd love to know what went wrong. Here's the thing. Here's the thing is I'd love for someone, because I have contact with people in Psyonix. I would love for someone to just message me, say what went wrong with the Renegade Cup on day one. Or to say, why was the format best of threes, I'm not sure if it would be, if I'd accept it, but at least I'd know, that, they are acknowledging the stuff that we're saying about them. The in-game items thing was certainly reactionary, but with the rumours coming out about TSM, is it that reactionary anymore? I don't know if it was. Or, was it a case of just the TSM thing that no one knew about rather than everyone complaining about it on Reddit? It adds a new layer of doubt, essentially.
The knowledge that I would say audience get, us to anyone is basically through Twitter and through players. And players have even been saying that they're not getting good communication from Psyonix. I was going to say, the reason why org items that never get announced, why we don't know what's coming in future updates, is because the last time they did a roadmap, it came to bite them in the butt massively. I can remember when they said about, cross-party platform stuff that just came out last month in February. That was announced and supposed to come out January of last year. And that's how long it took, because it was more than what they thought they could do. They thought they'd be able to turn it around quicker, but of course they ran into problems with Sony, and they don't want to badmouth Sony, so they're trying to... They think it's better to not speak about what's going on rather than potentially make mistakes and potentially do something wrong, which... No, it doesn't work like that. As long as you're open and honest, that's the best result from anything.
Yeah, like, you know, like you don't even need to put dates in. Just say, look, this is where we want esports to progress. We want to have, this is where we're at right now. And then next thing we want to add is this. And the next thing we want to add is this, and this, and this, and this, going forward into the future.
I
Not
would say
necessarily
the
add dates.
Overwatch approach is the best one to it. So they say, oh, this is a new hero we just brought out, but we've got 2 currently in development. We actually think the one in alpha is going to come through faster, because the one we've got in beta in-house testing just isn't working with its mechanics, but we're trying to figure it out. But that's going to be a long one, which we're putting on the back burner to go with time. And that sort of like approach with constant developer updates is the best way, because fans
Give
can
us a
watch them.
weekly blog. Give us a weekly fucking blog.
I would say fortnightly would be the best sort of like result.
Yeah, like once every couple of weeks, once every week, maybe once even a month, you know, just be like, hey guys, this is what we've been working on behind the scenes, you know, we've been talking to certain partners, or, you know, we're going to be doing the org items thing, you know, like it would be fantastic just to keep everybody in the loop, to make sure that, you know.
And that's when you put your announcements in as well, to get people watching them of stuff like the ESL one. So you do that blog update, and then you do the article afterwards. That is the best combination of both worlds, essentially.
I just read the chat as well. It's fantastic. After a long silence, Silence has finally said something about our RLEsports scene. It goes as follows. Fuck the Eternal J. Thank you for this statement. See you next year.
And then, I'm sorry, then whilst you're saying that, I've looked at this on Twitter, like, that's just randomly come through from the new Toy Story film. Fucking weird picture combination, I'm just saying.
Fucking hell.
I don't know if Craig can get that on stream.
No, don't put that on stream. That's fucking retarded. That is fucking retarded.
He's putting it on stream. I like it. But it's just like that. Fuck you, Eternal Jay. Like the whispering into the ear.
No.
Jay, go do one.
No. Absolutely not.
Oh. I'll put a link in Twitch chat.
Fuck you. I will ban you if you put that link in Twitch chat. I swear to fuck. I swear to fuck, Bacon. I swear to fuck.
You wouldn't do it. You don't have the balls.
Fuck you.
He puts it in quickly.
Craig's fucking put it on stream. You cretin.
I was just randomly looking at that on Twitch. The guys, it's like the new picture coming out from Toy Story 4. And it was just that whilst Jay's saying the whole, fuck you, Eternal Jay. That's what I imagine is going on right there.
Go away.
It's beautiful. It's perfect. I've literally just been banned.
You've been banned from the chat. I told you I'd fucking ban you, mate. I thought you've been banned. There you go. I'll unban you after the show.
Yes, Daddy. There we go. I think on that bombshell, we should probably end this out.
We probably should. So, to recap, the main thing we want is some fucking communication.
Just talk to me.
Just talk to us, you know. Just say something, you know. Even if it is only to a select few people, even if it is just a case of, like, you know, assuring us, or assuring me at the very least, you know, that my fucking criticisms aren't leveled in vain, you know.
Yeah, because basically, Sonics, we need to go to couples therapy. That's what's going on here. Like, you never talk to me anymore.
This is true, actually. They used to speak to you quite a bit, and now they just fucking don't say shit anymore. But, you know, again, you know, like, I would absolutely love it if half the shit I said was not really an issue. You know, again, it would be nice just to be reassured the fact that all my moaning is not fucking shouting into the dark, because I care about Rocket League a lot. You know, that's why I go on these big rants. That's why I do features like this that probably could get us banned and banished and blacklisted from Psyonix forever. You know, like shit like that. It's like, you know, it certainly puts my career on the line, but I care enough about it to the point where I really want to say something. So I'm going to say something. I hope to God that someone is listening. And again, the reassurance that someone is listening would just be stellar.
Worth it.
And with that, we're going to end this week's show. It's been a fun one. I'll say that. It's been fun.
It's been tense. That's what
it's been. Tense.
Like, I've had like a knot in the neck. You know when you got a muscle that just sort of like goes, you just can't get rid of it because it's gone like really, tense. I've had that, and this has not helped me this episode. I will say that. I'm going to start twitching like in spasm out in a second.
It's all right. I busted a nerve down the back of my neck, so now occasionally I do a little twitch as well. So it's all right. It's all good.
You see what you do to us, Psyonix.
Next thing you know, fucking Yukio's aneurysm is going to start getting even worse as time goes on, as people get increasingly frustrated. But yes,
veins start popping. Yeah,
veins start popping. People, you know, nerves start getting till I don't fucking know. Anyway, it's been 2 hours, mate. We've overrun again. We've done it again on this podcast. We said it would be an hour and a half podcast every week.
And
Fuck
another
that.
one.
Another one's gone. So there you go. That's how we roll at AfterShock. Next week, I believe the play-ins are going to be happening. If my memory serves me right.
Is it this weekend or the one? It's the one after.
Is it the one after?
Yeah, 31st is the last. Is the plans.
Okay.
So next week, I guess we could do predictions, Jay.
I mean, we kind of already did that with Jam in the last episode, so
yeah,
we might have another off week again. We might be taking another week's break to talk about, to let everything sort of like simmer for a bit. So, if we don't see us next week, if we're a little bit absent, then that's the reason why. We're just letting everybody sort of like qualify for the RLRS.
There is no news.
And there's no, and if there's no news and there's no mailbag, then obviously we'll leave it. So if you want to see a podcast next week, get people to fucking make announcements and go to the Discord and ask us questions. And if we get enough, then we'll do an episode. How about that? Yeah? Sound good?
Yeah, that's fine.
Nice, awesome. Well, again, we're going to let the teams all qualify for the RLRS in a couple of weeks' time, so make sure you keep your eyes locked onto that action because we will be covering it all in detail. There's also going to be a good chance that the podcast will be moving to a different date as well. Obviously, we've been doing it on Tuesdays for the last couple of weeks, but thanks to a few announcements coming very, very soon, if you're a Bubble Scene player especially, you want to keep your eyes out on this. There's actually a couple of tournaments coming up very, very soon that will definitely catch your eyes. And it's not just TCS. There's another thing in the works. I can tell you that right now. But until that point, until the announcement has to come down, I've been the Eternal J. This has been Digital Bacon. Any final words before we sign off for this week on the RL AfterShock podcast?
I was just randomly clicking through Wikipedia and found out that Karma is the oldest current pro player. I did not know that.
What?
The oldest current pro player in EU is Shakaram. Who would have thought? Just random little nod. Scrub Killer still holds the badge of youngest pro player. So.
I was expecting a Cooksys Speedo comment out of you today, but apparently not. That's just like really weird random facts
Is
of
that
Digital
all
Bacon.
I am to you? It's just
after you said that,
lewdness.
abso-fucking-lutely. So there you go. That's going to be the end of this
There's
week's
only
episode
one
of RL
Cooksys
AfterShock.
Speedo. Come on, Jay.
That's going to be the end of this episode of RL AfterShock. Again, once again, I've been the Eternal J. Digital Bacon's been my boy. And I also want to give a special shout out to my friend Craig, who came in super clutch. We weren't going to have a live episode today, but he's come out to help me stream it, and he's just been absolute G, fucking really responsive and really, really well about everything. So thanks, Craig, and thank you all for joining us here. We'll see you back here next week or the week after for even more of the AfterShock.
Unban me, please.